and Paula Winter as Senior Deputy Treasurer. So just give an update of the department.
Great, thank you. Are all vacancies full now in your department?
No, we are still working on the Accountant 1 position.
Got it.
And hopefully we'll get that tightened up later this week, beginning of next.
That's right. That was just published, right, or noticed in. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, is there any more public comment? All right, if not, we will move on to new business. Item A, an overview of groundwater in the village of Germantown, requested by me.
Good evening. I will not be presenting this topic. A person from John Jensen from Collier Consulting Engineers will be presenting the topic. He's the senior hydrologist at the firm, and Collier Consultants is who we used during the drilling operation for well 12. And he really won't be discussing exactly on well 12. It's an overview of everybody wants to understand how aquifers work, where they are, how they function. And he is the person who will be able to tell you everything you need to know about aquifers. So is John available? Is he on?
I'm here.
Okay, John, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, good evening, everybody. I apologize for not being there in person. I've gotten double booked. I'm actually at a groundwater conference in California. It's the Western Water Congress, and I'm giving several papers, so I couldn't cancel it. So fortunately, fortunate or unfortunate, we now have Zoom and WebEx, and so please forgive me for not being there in person. I'm, like I said, John Jansen, Collier Consulting. I am a hydrogeologist and a geophysicist, and I live in town of Trenton, just south of West Bend. And I have been working with the village of Germantown with their wells for probably 30 or 35 years. So I know the area pretty well. The Dolomite Aquifer, the limestone bedrock aquifer, was a big chunk of my dissertation work at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So I probably have done more research on your aquifer than probably anybody else in the state. So I'm happy to be here to help you folks understand your aquifers and understand, the situation you're in with well 12. So can you see a little red cursor moving around? Take that as a no?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was working. So what you see here on the cover, this is actually the test well that was drilled for well 7, which is one of the 2 wells right across the street from the village hall. And this is a dolomite well, and you can see that it was flowing artesian when it was drilled. So what is an aquifer? An aquifer is basically any soil or rock layer that can yield water in useful amounts. That's a pretty vague, generic description, but basically all we're talking about is soil and rock that has pores that can hold water, and it's permeable enough that when you put a well in and pump it, you get useful water. That's just kind of as simple as what an aquifer is. So we're just talking about the water that saturates the soils and rock beneath your feet. So in this picture, you can see we have the ground surface, and then there's there's some space of soil or rock that is actually not saturated. That's called the vadose zone. It's above the water table, but you get to a certain depth and everything's saturated. All the pores are saturated. So that is simply what an aquifer is. But there are different types of aquifers. The one that people are probably most familiar with are sand and gravel or sandstone. And this would be called a porous aquifer, where you've got some type of sand or sand grain with a pore space in between. So the water flows through these pores. And these are in some ways the simplest aquifers. And there are a lot of these aquifers in southeast Wisconsin, just not a lot in Germantown. The next type of aquifer would be a fractured controlled aquifer. And that's where you have a pretty tight rock, like let's say, in this, they're saying here igneous, like granite or basalt, but this could also be like limestone or dolomite. where the rock is really dense, but it's fractured and the water can move through the fractures. And this is a very common type of aquifer in the central part of the state, up around Wausau and anywhere you have granite near the surface. When you have limestone or dolomite, it's a fractured aquifer, but the rock itself is soluble in water. So water moving through it enlarges the fractures. So you get bigger fractures and you get some little voids. And this would be a solution enlarged, or some might call it a karst aquifer. And this is similar to the fractured aquifer, but it's more permeable. So you can get generally a lot higher yields. And this is pretty much what the dolomite aquifer in Germantown is. It's a fractured aquifer that's got karst enlargement. So how do we think about an aquifer? Well, this is a real simple graphic I use, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence here, but I'm just trying to get a couple of basic points across. You can think of an aquifer as basically a flowing system where water enters the aquifer at some point of recharge, and these tend to be like the high areas. It flows through the aquifer, and it eventually finds surface water, and it discharges. The aquifer itself acts like a big bathtub. It's a big storage vessel. So you have many years, decades, or even centuries of recharge stored in this bathtub. So you have water that's coming out that's roughly equal to the recharge, but you have this big storage vessel, the bathtub that is the aquifer. And even though the groundwater moves very slowly, and we're talking maybe feet per year, maybe tens of feet per year, but very slowly, it's almost never stagnant. It's almost always moving from recharge to discharge through the system. So this is a schematic that's more realistic. This is an aquifer system where we've got a ground surface, and then we've got a vadose zone or unsaturated zone, and then we have water falling from precipitation that percolates through permeable soils, makes it to the aquifer, and then it flows along the aquifer until it finds some type of surface water to discharge to. In this case, it's showing a little stream here. In the Germantown case, the actual recharge, a lot of it would be occurring west, say in Richfield, where you've got sand and gravel, permeable units at the surface, and the topography is higher. So the water's entering the aquifer in this area. It's flowing through the dolomite. And in this case, it's going all the way under Mequon, and it's discharging in Lake Michigan. So it's a fairly large flow system. And we tap it by putting wells into it to intercept that flow and pump it to the surface. So of the aquifers in southeastern Wisconsin, the sand and gravel is one of the more important aquifers. It's present a lot in Richfield, but it's very limited in Germantown. And here we're just talking about the glacial sand and gravel that was left behind. This is a quarry from, I believe it's in Waukesha County. But you can see we just have a lot of sand and gravel, and the sand and gravel has pore space that can hold water and transmit it to a well. So this is a lot of the wells in Richfield. West Bend has several sand and gravel wells. Jackson does, Slinger does. There are a lot of communities that have good sand and gravel wells. In Germantown, there is not as much sand and gravel, and it's thinner. So there are some private wells that are in the sand and gravel, but there are no municipal wells in the sand and gravel in Germantown. Beneath the sand and gravel, you have the dolomite bedrock. People will call it limestone. In this case, it's actually dolomite, which is chemically a little different than limestone, but it behaves essentially the same. This is a map that shows the bedrock geology of southeast Wisconsin. This is the village of Germantown. And this green color, that's all the Silurian dolomite, the limestone bedrock we're talking about. So you see the entire village has this dolomite as its bedrock. This blue pattern here, this is actually an erosional valley, a bedrock valley from before the glaciers, and water flowed to the southwest, and in this tributary valley to the southeast. And this is full of sand and gravel. So like Jackson has got good wells, municipal wells in the sand and gravel. Slinger has some too. Hartford has some. So that's the sand and gravel aquifer. As you can see, it really isn't present in Germantown. So not all of, but most of your domestic wells and half of your municipal wells are in this dolomite aquifer. And this is just a little side note. You see this line here, that's the Waukesha Fault. So there's a fault that goes right through the southeast corner of Germantown. And actually one of your sandstone wells is drilled through this fault. So what does the dolomite look like? I think we've all kind of been in limestone quarries or seen outcrops. And you can see that, it tends to be a gray or yellowish, pretty hard rock. The rock itself is almost impermeable, but it's very commonly fractured. And this is a snapshot of a quarry wall in Waukesha County. And you can see there are a lot of horizontal fractures that go along bedding planes. And then there's some vertical fractures. So these fractures are pretty good size, but not particularly thick. So if you drill here, and this is below the water table, so if it's a little deeper, you'd have plenty of water entering through these fractures for a domestic well, but probably not for the capacity that you need for a municipal well. What we need to find are big vertical fracture zones that allow water to come down and enlarge these fractures. And this is just a schematic that shows the unconsolidated material above bedrock, and this is the dolomite bedrock. And you have zones where there's, because of some geologic movements, you've got a concentration of vertical fractures, and that allows water to infiltrate faster. And then it causes the rock to dissolve along these bedding planes. And so you get these, very high permeability zones, much higher than if you were just say 50 or 100 feet off the fracture zone. So that's the kind of feature, either the vertical fracture zone or these associated horizontal bedding plane fracture zones. Those are the kind of features that we're looking for when we're trying to site a high capacity municipal dolomite aquifer well. And this is a shot from well 5, which is about 500 feet from well 7, also across from the village hall. And what we're looking at is a downhole TV camera that was lowered down the borehole wall. And this shot is from 127 feet. And this borehole should be a nice round, almost like a pipe, but it's not. It's got these fractures coming out. And that's what we're looking for. That's where the water flows in the dolomite. So this is one of the better dolomite wells in southeast Wisconsin because we hit this massive fracture zone. And if you look at it, you can see it's kind of like at a right angle. And that is not uncommon that these fractures kind of intersect each other at right angles. So this one, we spent a fair amount of time doing geophysics and other hydrogeology to find this fracture zone and drill this well on top of it to get as much water as we could. And this well was drilled in the late 80s, I think 87 or 88, something like that. I found the well for you. That's one of the first things I did for Germantown. Well, when you pump a well, you normally get a nice ring pattern of drawdown. You pump a well, you pull the water out of the well. That causes water to flow in, and that depresses the water in the aquifer adjacent to the well. And that causes water to flow from the aquifer by gravity towards the well. So you're using the pump to lift the water, and you're using gravity to drive water through the aquifer to the well. So you get a decrease in water levels. We call it drawdown. We draw down the water surface next to the well. In a porous aquifer, like a sand and gravel or a sandstone we're talking about, where we have nice pores and fairly uniform distribution, you get a pattern of drawdown that's like concentric circles around the well. So real close to the well, you might have 10 feet of drawdown. You go out a few hundred feet, it might be 5 feet. You go out further, it's less. So you get this nice, predictable, circular pattern in these uniform porous aquifers. That's not the way the dolomite behaves. Because the dolomite is pretty tight and the water is actually flowing through fractures, the water is not moving in a nice uniform pattern. You can think of the fractures as almost being pipelines or highways for water to enter the well. This is a pumping test that was done on well 7. And once again, that's one of the dolomite wells across from the village hall. This was done shortly after we found the well in the mid-90s. And we pumped it at 1,200 gallons a minute. And that's like 1.5 million gallons per day. That's a lot of water. We pumped it for almost 2 days. And instead of seeing nice concentric rings of drawdown, we saw linear drawdown along the fracture zone that we knew about. And we actually saw a perpendicular, almost perpendicular, intersecting fracture zone with drawdown along it. So this is not uncommon for dolomite wells that are in major fracture zones. The fact that the fracture zone is there is the reason why you get as much water, why you can get 1,000 gallons a minute. Most dolomite wells would be much less than 100 gallons a minute. 10 or 15 would be a good well. So getting 1,000 gallons per minute means that you found a very highly permeable, fractured, and solution zone. And that, like I said, that's what we look for these high capacity wells. So when you're talking about the drawdown in a dolomite well, it's not predictable like a sand and gravel well. You have these linear patterns, and they're not always obvious until you pump them where those patterns are. And you need to have several wells that you can monitor so you can get the shape of that pattern. And the last aquifer that's present in Germantown is the sandstone aquifer, the deep sandstone. And some of you might have heard of this aquifer. It was the one that was getting all the attention, that had radium in it, and the one that was drawing down so badly in Waukesha County that people were worried about. There was a time there where people thought that the Waukesha County might run out of water, which wasn't true, but that was in the media. So it's basically, the sandstone aquifer is a series of sandstone and shale and some carbonate like dolomite and limestone layers that are at the surface in the Wisconsin Dells. So if you've ever done a duck ride, you're looking at the sandstone aquifer right there. These same rock units are present in the village of Germantown, but they're about 1,000 to 2,000 feet below the surface. So they're down there, they're saturated, and they can support high capacity wells. It's not uncommon to get 1,000 gallons a minute out of a sandstone well, which is a lot of water for a municipal well. 3 of your wells are in the sandstone, and about half of your pumping capacity comes from the sandstone. And I forgot to mention that 3 of your wells are in the dolomite, and about half of your water comes from the dolomite. Now, as I mentioned, there was a big fear of the sandstone running out of water because it is being pumped so hard through the 90s and early 2000s. But then a lot of communities went off the sandstone. So water levels actually been rebounding since 2005. And water levels are up over 100 feet in various places. So there's plenty of water in the sandstone. So your sandstone wells are fine. Now, just to talk a little bit about well 12, we worked with both the engineer that had the contract for the well, and we were acting as their hydrogeologist to help them design the well and do the testing on the well. And initially, well 12 was going to be constructed as a sandstone well. So it was going to be drilled through the limestone to the base of a shale unit that separates the limestone from the sandstone. And this shale unit, it's called the Maquoketa Shale. It's about 200 feet thick, and it totally isolates the limestone from the sandstone. So there's no drawdown in the limestone when you pump the sandstone. So the initial plan was to drill through, set casing at the base of the shale and grout it up to seal off the limestone, and then drill down to about 1,400 feet and pump 1,000 gallons per minute, plus or minus, out of the sandstone. So that was the initial plan. While the limestone was being drilled, at about 200 feet, we started picking up big fractures and started making a lot of water. And going back and looking at some of the mapping I've done, it actually was very close to a mapped fracture zone. So in retrospect, it wasn't a surprise that it hit a lot of water, but we hadn't really planned on that going in because the initial thought was a sandstone well. So it was making so much water, the question came up, well, could we just complete it as a dolomite well and not have to drill into the sandstone? And there are a couple of reasons you'd want to do that. Drilling into the sandstone involves, another 1,000 feet of drilling. So that costs a fair amount of money. The water level in the sandstone is lower. So every gallon of water you pump out uses more energy. And that costs tens of thousands of dollars a year in extra energy. And plus the sandstone can have radium in it. And you might have to treat it for radium, in which case, you're adding a significant expense for a radium treatment facility and annual operation and maintenance of it. So there are a lot of good reasons why a dolomite aquifer is attractive. Primarily, it's just less expensive and the water's cheaper to pump and you don't have to treat it. So after we had tagged the shale, the decision was made to reconstruct it as a dolomite well. So we backfilled the 20 feet of shale that we had drilled, set casing down to about 100 feet. So into the dolomite, the top of the dolomite was hit at about 17 feet. So we cased 80 feet into the dolomite, total depth of 100 feet, grouted it up, and then test pumped from the dolomite section itself. So the full thickness of the dolomite, the base of the well is about 400 feet, and the static water level was about 70 feet. So there's over 300 feet of saturated dolomite in this well. We also, when we did the additional test pumping, we put a packer in to simulate the casing in the well. And we noticed that the water level above the packer started to come up. It was 20 feet higher and it kept rising. So somewhere around 200 feet or, between 100 and 200 feet, there is some kind of a vertical confining unit, and the water levels in the upper part of the dolomite are higher than the lower part of the dolomite, which just shows that it's a fairly complicated flow system. So to determine the capacity and see what the impact of the well might be on surrounding wells, we ran a pumping test in July of 2021. So this is well 12, and the village was able to get permission from 5 private well owners to monitor water levels in their well while we pumped well 12. So we went out and we put in data loggers that are pressure transducer that records water level roughly every minute. So we can see how the water levels changed in these private wells while we pumped well 12. And well 12 was pumped at 800 gallons per minute for roughly 3 days. And that's over 1 million gallons per day, or 1.1 million gallons per day roughly, which is, once again, a lot of water. It's an excellent producing dolomite well. This is a map a plot of the drawdown in the well while we're pumping it for 3 days. So the initial water level, the static water level with no pumping, was roughly 70 some feet. So that's 0 drawdown. The pump flips on and it draws down pretty quickly and it starts to stabilize. And by the end of 3 days of pumping, we had just over 16 feet of drawdown in the well. We turned it off and the well started to recover once again very quickly. And within about a day and a half or 2 days, it was back to its original static water level. So running this well 800 gallons a minute for 3 days causes roughly 16 feet of drawdown. Now, I think you can notice that this isn't just a nice smooth curve. It's got these little dog teeth in it. Normally, like any sand and gravel or sandstone aquifer, this would be a smooth curve. But we were seeing little mini drawdown events that were cycling on and off during the test. At first, we weren't quite sure what they were, but then we looked at the pumping of the other village wells. And so this is the same drawdown curve, just on a different scale. This is actually depth below surface. So we're starting here at 70 feet and we drop down to, less than 90 feet. And you can see that same drawdown pattern and recovery pattern, but the gray bars represent when the other village wells were running. Now, Germantown operates their wells so that when the water levels in the towers come down, all the wells kick on at the same time and run for a few hours to fill up the tower, and then they shut off. So they're flipping on and off 3 or 4 times a day. And you can see that every time the wells would flip on, the water levels would drop a little bit in well 12, and then when they would turn off, they come back up, and then down and up, down and up. So we're seeing an almost immediate response in well 12 from the pumping of the other dolomite wells, the other 3 dolomite wells. So this is an indication that all the wells are tied together on one fracture system. They very quickly react to each other. So, but it also means that there's a lot of water there. So even though that you see the drawdown almost instantly, it doesn't draw down very much. There's a lot of water in that fracture system, and you're just seeing, essentially, you can almost think of it as like pumping out of that bathtub. The effects of pumping propagate miles very quickly. So this is kind of the results of what we found after 3 days of pumping. We had 16.1 feet of drawdown in well 12. The 4 closest wells had roughly 7 feet of drawdown. So roughly, less than half of what we had in the pumping well. And that would indicate that they're pretty well connected. But there's some resistance to the flow between them. So they're tightly connected, but only about half the drawdown. Now there was this one well about 2 miles, or I think about a mile to the north, the pond well here, that had 13 feet of drawdown. Now that's not quite twice as much drawdown as the closer wells. So that's unusual. You would expect it to be lower drawdown. So that means there's some preferential flow path between this well and the pumping well. So it's tighter, it's more tightly connected than these other wells are. So the takeaway here is that if you run this well 800 gallons a minute continuously, you will get about 16 feet of drawdown in the pumping well and something around 7 feet of drawdown in most of the surrounding wells. And that would probably apply to most of the wells in the subdivision. But you have some outliers that might have a little more. And I know there was some concern in Richfield, in a subdivision west of 45. And I haven't seen that data, but I know that they have a groundwater monitoring network that Doug Cherkauer, actually one of my advisors from my school days at UW Milwaukee, he has a groundwater monitoring network where they're doing this kind of monitoring on a continuous basis. And they saw the water levels flip on, go down and go up a few feet in response to well 12. So I know there's been concern that well 12 could cause some of these wells to lose their ability to pump. And it's probably not the case. It's very unlikely that any well would actually lose its ability to pump. When this is again that drawdown curve that we talked about, where you pump a well and when nothing's pumping, it's called the static water level. You flip the pump on and you get this cone of depression. And as long as that pumping level stays above your pump, your well can produce water. If the pumping level drops down below your pump, then you start to break suction and you can't pump water and your pump can burn out. And that has happened around some municipal wells. I've worked on several of those cases where There have been wells that have been impacted, and it's particularly a concern when you have a lot of drawdown. Some municipal wells will have 100 or 200 feet of drawdown in the well. So you can have 50 feet of drawdown in a private well that's maybe, less than a mile away. That can cause wells the water level to drop below the pump. In this case, the maximum drawdown was 16 feet in the pumping well. And that's at 3 days continuous pumping. This well will never run 3 days continuously at 800 gallons a minute. It will probably run 2 or 3 hours a day, 3 or 4 times a day. So the actual drawdown in the well, in well 12, would probably be like 8 feet or less. And the drawdown at the surrounding private wells will probably be on the order of 2 or 3 feet, maybe up to 3 or 4 feet. So as long as those wells have their pump set, more than 10 or 20 feet below their normal pumping level in the well, they won't even know that well 12 is pumping. If there was a well that the pump was set just below their normal pumping level, you could get a situation where they break suction and can't pump. But then fixing it is as easy as just lowering the pump. So I know I kind of rattled on, but I hope that gives you a kind of a feel for your aquifers and the situation around well 12. And I guess it's up to the village, but I'd be willing to answer any questions.
I'll just start out by saying the reason that I asked for this to get some more information, thank you, John, very much, is twofold. Number one, I wanted to get some answers why we did the dolomite well rather than the sandstone well. I was part of that process, but I wanted to get some more information on why it was recommended to us to do that. And more importantly, as we start developing a well protection plan for the wells around there, I wanted to get some more information on this, what the expectations are and things like that. So we know that when we develop that plan that we're going to do the right thing for the residents and make sure that the protection is there that's needed. It, on the surface, well, I'm not going to say anything now. We'll wait until we start developing that plan. But that was the reason for this presentation. Are there any questions for John? Terry?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, John. Thank you. It was a great presentation. These are not going to all be interconnected. I'm just going to go through them as I wrote them down. Who all draws from the same aquifer when you look at the surrounding communities?
From the Dolomite Aquifer?
Yes, the one where well 12 will be in.
Yeah, most of the private wells in southeast Wisconsin, if they don't have sand and gravel, they're going to be in the
Right.
Dolomite. So around you, it's going to be, the private homes, the homes that are not on the municipal system in Mequon, they'll all be on the Dolomite. The homes to the north will all be on mostly on Dolomite wells. Some might be sand and gravel. And there will be Dolomite wells in Richfield, though a fair number of those might be sand and gravel. So in terms of municipalities, there are limestone wells and Dolomite wells in West Bend. There are Dolomite wells in Jackson. I think Slinger's all sand and gravel now. So there are several communities that use this aquifer, but there are a lot of private wells in this aquifer.
What about municipal?
Municipal, like I said, would be some in Jackson, some in West Bend.
Okay, the big ones. I mean, I'm talking the village wells when I say municipal, right?
Yeah.
So Jackson is on the same aquifer.
Some of the wells, not all of them. Most of the wells are sand and gravel. They have some Dolomite wells.
Okay, and Menominee Falls?
Menominee Falls has some Dolomite wells, but they are on the west side. They used to have a fair number of sand and gravel and a couple of Dolomite wells on the east side, close to you, but they have gone to Lake Michigan water on the east side of the village. So they are, the municipal wells there are no municipal wells on the east side of the village. They have a couple of Dolomite wells on the west side. There are some private wells in Menominee Falls that be in the Dolomite that are still not hooked up to the village.
And the fractures in the rock obviously are different for each of these specific wells.
Yeah, the fracture patterns they're all different. I mean, they behave in some similar ways, but there's differences to them with the orientation, how well connected they are. So every well is different.
Okay, and then in Richfield specifically, what is that called, that demarcation line where their flow goes to the Mississippi and our flow goes to Lake Michigan,
That's the
Right.
subcontinental divide.
right? And so that is very close to this whole area that we're thinking about some development in.
Right.
So our well, does it actually draw? It draws water from Richfield, correct? Or am I wrong about that? Because their water's
Well-
going the other way. Does it draw from that, or how
The
does that
water
work?
is naturally flowing from Richfield under Germantown. You're just pumping it up.
Okay, so if a well were drilled in Richfield, right?
Mhm.
They'd be in the same Dolomite infrastructure here, correct?
Unless they drill, unless they hit sand and gravel and they don't drill into the Dolomite. But if they drill the
Okay.
Dolomite well, and they're east of the subcontinental divide, they would be in the same aquifer.
Okay, same aquifer for all of us in this area. Do
Mhm.
we know, will this drawdown that we have experienced in the 38-hour test, can we, with some assurance, say that that drawdown will never change, or what would affect it in the future?
Well, it will change with recharge. So if you get a real dry, couple of years, you'll see a little more drawdown. And if you, the water levels in the whole area will drop a few feet. And then if you see a wet year, they'll rise a few feet. So there's this seasonal and annual variation of a few feet that it goes up and down. But this well, quickly came to what we call steady state where water level stabilized. So you'll get a few more feet of drawdown around the well and it will stabilize. And as long as you don't change how you pump the well, it really won't change on a permanent basis. Just go up and down with wet years, dry years.
Okay, and what is the maximum pumping capacity of well 12?
I don't think we actually know that. We pumped 800 gallons a minute and there was still a lot more drawdown available. You could pump this well over 1,000, maybe 1,500 gallons a minute, but you don't really need that water. So you're only going to be using this well if you do develop it as a dolomite well or even a sandstone well. You're probably only going to pump it for a few hours a day, a few times a day. So, there's no reason to put in a 2,000 gallon per minute pump and only run it for 15 minutes as opposed to a 1,000 gallon per minute pipe or 800 gallon per minute pump and run it for an hour. You get the same amount of water, just less drawdown.
Okay, and I guess too, the question had come up with all of the weather patterns changing as we've observed over the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. Then the droughts, obviously, they now have on the West Coast where you are and Arizona where I used to be. We can't predict what potential impact weather or a severe drought would really have, can we, at this point in time? That's
Well,
difficult to
you-
do, I would imagine.
I mean, there are groundwater models for the area. You can predict, if you make an assumption of what the change in recharge is going to be, you can make predictions of it. Those assumptions, though, are kind of hard to defend. What's been happening over the last 10 or 20 years in the area is water levels have been going up. As the climate is changing, we're actually getting wetter. And so groundwater levels in most places are going up, which is not the case in California or a lot of the West. But whether that continues in, decades to come, whether we'll get drier, who knows? 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, Wisconsin had a climate very similar to Western Kansas. So I don't know if that would ever happen again, but in our lifetimes, I don't think there'll be a big change.
Okay, and the only two potential changes to draw down would be how much we pump and some super significant change in a weather pattern that would affect it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Larry?
John, this is Larry. I'll help you out a little bit. When we got permission from the DNR to construct and get well 12 up and running, they did put a limit on us. It was 800 gallons a minute for pumping rate and a max pumping time per day of 14 hours. So they did set a volume limit for us on well 12.
Okay.
Yeah, but you are correct. We never tested the max on it.
Yeah, it would make more than that, but there's really no reason to even try.
All right, Trustee Kaminsky, one.
As follow-up to what you just said, Larry, why did they put a limit of 800 gallons per day on that? What was their reasoning?
I don't recall right now. John, would you recall that now that I kind of brought that back up, why DNR may have set that limit? I
I think
don't.
that was based on your projected water needs. You know, they try to balance what you reasonably need. They don't want to give you a blank check and say pump as much as you want.
Okay,
I suspect it kind of relates back to how much you asked for.
And I think that's what we were asking for, was around the 800, 850 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
Great,
I
thank you.
recall that the intent was to take some of the load off of well 3, which was having some problems with the borehole.
All right, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. And like I said, we're going to use this information as we develop the plan for the well protection. I'm not taking any further questions right now. We need to move on to the next meeting things. So let's go to the item B, library condenser replacement commitment in the amount not to exceed $202,000.
Is there a presentation, Mr. Chairman? No. I see that now.
If I could, Mr. Chair, just real quickly, just to, John, this is Steve Kreckler, Village Administrator, and just to
Oh.
wrap up, thank you for your time this evening, and we appreciate you taking time away from the conference to give us some information here. And at this point, we're going to move on to other items, and we'll be in touch with you again, I'm sure.
Okay, well, thanks for your time too. And I used to live in Germantown, so I've got a soft spot for the community. So
awesome.
good luck.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Is this where you want me to stand or should I go?
That's fine.
Okay. In your packet, you should see a memo for the library condenser replacement. This was originally brought to Public Works regarding the library. They have referred it to GGF to determine what would be the best funding path for this project. The original estimate was $240,000, but once the bids came in, Scott Anderson is recommending to go with the $202,000. What I'm here to talk about is the funding method. Public Works had asked if ARPA would be an eligible use for this project, and indeed it would be. If you recall, we had originally recommended $300,000 to go to the police department design, $100,000 to go to the library, and $100,000 to go to Village Hall. After further discussion with the DPW director, it is his recommendation and our recommendation that the full $500,000 be used for the design of the police building, and as a result that this project be borrowed, with the borrowing coming later this year for the DPW building.
All right, committee? Yeah, Trustee Kaminsky.
Sounds like a lot of thought was put into this, so I will go along with that. The $500,000 that you mentioned is going to go into the police project. Is that for the design?
Correct, yes.
And that makes sense because that's next on the agenda to be, am I correct, Steve, on that?
Yes.
Next up? Okay, I'll make a motion to follow staff's recommendation to include this in the borrowing for the DPW building, which is coming up pretty quick, I would imagine. That'll be my motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion? Yeah, I tend to agree after hearing this that the ARPA fund should be used for the police department design, and we'll do the borrowing for this. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Item C, K-9 squad car set up in the amount not to exceed $20,487.67.
Hi, we had received approval to purchase a new K-9 squad earlier in the year. We are now looking for the funds to complete the changeover to include new equipment, the actual changeover costs. The K-9, Friends of the K-9 Committee have been generous enough to raise $15,000 of that, just over $20,000. We'd be looking to take the remaining $5,000 and dollars out of the K-9 fund that has more than enough funds for that, to cover that.
All right, committee.
Motion to approve.
I'll second question, no.
Great. I want to thank the Friends of Germantown,
Yeah.
K-9 for providing $15,000. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Trustee Kaminsky?
Yeah, we have one dog officer, one K-9 officer, right?
We have two.
Now,
So when
so we have to have two squads, obviously.
Correct. So
Okay.
when we started the second K-9, we did start that out with a brand new squad. This squad is for the original K-9 unit.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Great. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. Item D, capital funding plan.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is
Yes.
Oh, now it's off. There, now.
All
it's
right,
on.
there we go. Phil Costin with Ellers. Good to be with you again. We've been working probably over the last year or so on starting to put together kind of a multi-year capital plan. As you know, there's some large legacy projects that are pending, the DPW building, future fire facility or police facility. I don't want to get the fire department excited about a fire building. So, and so we've been trying to kind of work through a couple of things that tonight is informational. I want to be able to kind of share some initial numbers with you. Ultimately, what we're trying to get to always is what is the actual impact to the property tax owner, payer, average homeowner, to make sure that they're fully engaged in this process and have a better understanding of potential impact. So we have kind of a short presentation that is really kind of the start of this process. Again, this is informational today. There's always a little fear of putting this out there in kind of what I'll call initial draft, because it's hard to unsee numbers. You know, everybody sees them and they kind of go, "Oh, I remember that number," and it's hard to dial that back. So, what our task here in working with staff was to develop this capital plan, which will take you from 22 to 28, and we can extend it out longer if you would like, but the first couple of large scale projects are really kind of the more pressing issues. So annually, what the village has been doing is issuing general obligation notes, 10-year notes for your normal capital. So we built that in, kept it at $3.5 million annually. In 22, you already undertook that project. But from 23 to 28, you'll see there's an annual borrowing, 10-year notes. We haven't deviated from what's been past practice in the village. And then again, those legacy projects I referenced, DPW building 22 to 23 timing, and then the police facility for now, we have a placeholder. Start date, I think when we talked to Steve and Matthew, was 24, but really 25 is kind of the funding cycle process. So those are the dates and timing that we have used for this plan. As always, we have some key assumptions that we're using. The first assumption is one that we can modify very easily, but we're using, it seems like a strange number, 2.99% average annual growth. And that's growth in the overall value of the community. And how we got there was we took your 5-year historical growth, kind of the actual growth that's happening, net new construction growth. And we dropped that by a third and just said, you've been developing rather rapidly over the last number of years, the last 5 years. So we took what you've done over the last 5 years and we kind of reined that back by a third, just to be a little more conservative. The second is economic change. A lot of the growth that we've seen over the last 2 years throughout the state has really been economic change. Home values increasing, property values increasing. And we've really, again, taken a little more conservative approach and reduced what has happened the last 5 years and reduced that by a half, which is how we got to the 2.99%. I'm not married to that number. We can modify it. We can use 3.5%. We can use 2%. But for now, we're using 2.99%. Also, my quick look at the tax increment districts, while some of them are very healthy, we don't really expect closure of any of the districts until after this planned model. So closure for the first one that we see, maybe the large district to date, could be around 2030 or in that time frame. So again, it doesn't really impact this model very well. We've also, another assumption is we've used some conservative interest rates. Now, I say conservative. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the interest rate market, but we have factored in what's already transpired, which has been a significant increase in rates, and expect future rate adjustments, one coming soon, impacting interest rates. You will see we ratchet up the interest rate expectation as we go out further. And then, as I mentioned, 10-year notes for the normal capital, and then for those legacy projects, because we expect a long, useful life, we have a 20-year bond that's being issued for those projects, better in line with the expected life of those issues. This did not come in well at all. Okay. So I'm going to point to, does this have a pointer on it? Okay. All right. So I'm going to stand up for 1 second.
It's table 1, right, Phil?
Yes, table 1 that's
Thank
in
you.
your packet. What we're showing on that column is essentially what is transpiring with existing obligations that are happening right now. So in 2021, your tax rate per thousand for your debt levy was $1.13 per thousand. In 2022, that'll jump to about $1.18. And then as your debt is being paid off and before we show any debt being added to this plan, you'll see that the debt drops off and that tax rate levy number drops off because your debt's being paid back over that time period. This is what we call the base case. This is just where you are today without taking on any new projects that have been identified up to this point. So let's start talking a little bit about the different projects and how they would be financed. The first you can see here is projected financing in 2022 for the DPW building. Now, as we get into the DPW building financing discussion, which will be a separate night, separate action, there's a couple of ways we can look at how to structure this. One would be, do you take it all on at one time? Do you finance it all as in one block, one financing? Keep in mind that some of the projects here are related to the new TIF district, and that's been kind of broken out from this financing. So we have a financing of about $37 million for the DPW building, not including, again, the TIF portion of this. And you can see what we've modeled over the 20-year period are relatively flat principal and interest payments. If you look at the far column on the right, you can see we're around $3 million a year. It increases slightly each year to take advantage of growth in the community each year and distribute that over a larger tax base on an annual basis. We've identified estimated interest rates, which are a little bit high for what we'd expect to see today. But again, we're not in the market today. We're looking to be in the market probably in about 2 months. Or so with this issue. So this is the DPW building. that would be brought on in 22 first, hitting the budget levy, debt service levy in 23 budget year. So we'll have that discussion with staff to make sure as we get into further into the budget construct that whatever is being identified for potential impact from this borrowing is included. So I'm going to go through each one of these relatively quick and then kind of pull it back together and show you the impact. As I indicated, what we did include in each of these models is the normal capital borrowing, the 10-year notes. And this is the 23 issue, the roughly 3.5 million with issuance costs, 3.6 million being financed. In 24, there would be general obligation notes again for your 2024 capital projects on table 4. Table 5 would be when you would take on the project for the police facility. Now, again, the danger here is you can't unsee numbers. So don't hold me to this number. This is a number that working with cities or village staff that we've been told to use for a placeholder, which is $20 million. It's another big ticket item, another legacy project. So the 20 million, again, being financed over 20 years, starting in and being financed in 25 with first levy impact in 26 is how we have structured this, and then finance over that 20-year period as well. And then we've included the financing in 25 for your normal capital. Same with 26 and 27 and 28. So the legacy projects, again, are 22, 23, and then 25, and then all the rest of the normal capital borrowings that have been built into this. So I'm going to kind of jump to the financial impact of this because ultimately there's three things that we could do to modify financial impacts. One, we can make different assumptions on what your growth is going to be. That would impact this pretty significantly. The second would be what we do with interest rates. Do we try to be more aggressive and plan for more better rates being received over the years? And then the third, quite frankly, is going to be how we structure the debt. We can always back end load debt, meaning pay more principal in later years than what we're showing right now. Right now, we're showing these to be relatively level principal and interest payments, meaning that it'll be a little bit bigger hit on the debt levy in the early years, and then again, it'll drop off in the later years, enabling you the ability to take on your annual capital in the future. So if you look at this, I've highlighted in blue that financial impact. Now, there's the fourth item. I'm sorry. There is one other item. In the blue, on the first column that says abatements in blue, we have also identified the use of some fund balance for what I'll call tax stabilization, tax rate stabilization. And there's some flexibility in how that gets used, or if you actually use fund balance for that purpose. We've been working again with village staff, and they've kind of earmarked somewhere around $3.5 to $4 million that could be used to help level out tax payments. Yes.
Question. So
Yeah.
when we say fund balance, that is our rainy day fund essentially?
Reserve.
Okay.
Reserves. Yeah.
Okay.
And it still would keep you within the debt policy or your reserve fund policy, and still would be at a level that we wouldn't think would impact your rating at all.
We're currently at about $8.6 million in the fund balance or the reserves, so which is about twice what we need in order to meet our guidelines.
Yep. So again, we have flexibility in how that could be used. In this example, what I've attempted to do is to kind of level out the increases that are being reflected on this page. So on this page, again, you'll see that in the blue, we've identified the tax rate for debt and what the impacts would be. So again, just a reminder, in 2022, it's about $1.13 per thousand. So the second column from the far right, the average tax on a home valued at $350,000 is $396. So that is where you are today. That's that base case that I talked about before you take on any of these future projects. That when the DPW building would come on would increase, even using a little bit of fund balance to about $1.61 per thousand. And you can see once the police facility would be built, that would take you to about $2.35 per thousand, which is almost doubling what the debt levy number is over that time period. So again, we can adjust this and modify this by those factors that I talked about. You know, growth rates, interest rates, use of fund balance, are really and then how we structure the debt. If we want to back end load, we can modify that impact. But again, as you push debt into later years, you pay more in interest on that debt issue. So that's the rub. You know, you have to figure, do you want to pay it off quicker, pay less in interest, or do you want to push it into a little bit later years to minimize the impact of the average homeowner in the village? So that's the initial analysis that we run. Again, more than happy to come with a variety of options for you to take a look at. Restructuring the debt a little bit to minimize that impact. Some communities, when we go through this process, will give us kind of a target and say, can we work towards X dollars per thousand, or a debt levy number, and then we kind of work backwards to show how we can get there. So instead of jumping it to $2.35, you know, maybe the target is $2.10 or whatever the number is, and which again would probably be, you know, again modifying based on some of those factors that I talked about to get there. The other impact of this is on your overall debt capacity. If you take on this level of obligation, again, we're being pretty conservative with that growth assumption. So if the growth assumption that we use was going to be higher than what we're showing, that'll moderate this a little bit. But right now you're at about 36% of your borrowing capacity. This would jump you to about 68% of your borrowing capacity. That doesn't take into account potentially other issues that you may have for like some of your economic development type projects. So it does bump you up quite a bit. What I'd like to come back with and show you is, what if you had the same level of growth that you've had on average over the last 5 years, and kind of project that forward? That would probably drop this down to under 60%. Again, the challenge with this is conservative assumption on top of conservative assumption makes it look kind of negative, but where do you want to push that number? So happy to run this in a number of different directions. If you would like to set a target for tax rate for debt or tax levy for debt, we can certainly work towards that. Or if you'd like to see a modification of any of those assumptions, that's easy enough for us to bring back as well.
Question.
Committee, Trustee Myers.
Phil, when you talked about taking administration talked about taking $3.5 million out of the reserve of 8.6 that Steve talked about. Is that just for the DPW building?
Really what I'm doing is I'm identifying it under this abatement. I'm really using it in a way. There's two ways you could use it. One could be you apply fund balance to draw down the actual project cost, and say the DPW, instead of being $37 million, ends up being, you know, 33 or $34 million, and you finance that over that time period, and that'll have a little impact on this. What I've done here is I've used it as a model, in this model, as a way to mitigate some of the increases in that levy for debt. So each year, starting in 2024 through 2031, of using some fund balance to kind of moderate that impact, to keep it at that $2.35 per thousand. Without using that, it would bump that up even higher. So that's how I've used it in this model. It's certainly another approach could be to use it to pay down a project.
But these tables are full borrowing for
They're
the.
full borrowing
yeah.
at this point, correct?
Okay. Trustee Kaminsky? Oh, I'm sorry, were you done, Dennis?
Ladies first.
Go ahead, go finish up.
Go ahead, because I think I just lost my thought just for a moment.
Okay, I guess this is more for Steve or somebody who can answer a budget question. Our current 2021, the taxes we've paid, what was our debt service on that?
For 21?
So,
Yeah, the
well,
one that we
I
paid.
could answer for 22. For 22, your debt service levy was 3,136,000.
That's why I need to know 2021.
Oh, okay. I had that number. I'm sorry, Matthew. I don't have it on here.
I don't have the exact number, but it's $76,000 more than it was for this year.
So I guess I'm asking on the, again, to compare apples to apples for that $350,000 house, what was the amount for debt service? Was it $1 more than less than $1.13? Was it,
It's probably very similar.
Yeah,
so you think it was similar?
probably less than a penny difference.
Okay, so is this going to be an additional $1.13 on top of that?
No, no.
That was my whole
Yeah,
point. This looks a
exactly.
lot worse than it is. Because you have to take every one of these numbers then, knowing that we're at $1.13
Right
now.
now, yeah.
Then I look at these numbers and I say $2.01 minus $1.13.
Yeah,
You know, so these,
exactly.
Yeah, if we saw a column,
these numbers and you can go, oh my gosh,
Yes.
but it's not that bad. That was my whole point.
column with the difference would be helpful.
Yeah, with the difference would be.
But that's again, that's a moving target.
It is, but as long as we bring that up for anybody seeing these numbers, because like you say, it's hard to forget a number.
Yep.
And these columns make it look like, oh my gosh, we're doubling just what the debt service is, but we are not.
Right. I can add that column.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Clarity.
And I personally appreciate your conservative approach to this. I do. And I would rather look at numbers that are conservative because this brings us closer to the worst case scenario. And I like to live there when it comes to looking at what our taxpayers give to the village to support us here in the village. So I really appreciate this presentation. I would love to see you come back with that column and with some options. That's me personally.
Yeah, and I don't know that we could even put a recommendation for reserves right now without
No.
seeing some
You gotta
further
see
information and
everything.
maybe some recommendations for that.
And then who knows what the economy's doing? You know, in the next, we're going to know a lot more a year from now than we know today.
One option, let me just, because we do this quite a bit, and one option that may be worth having you look at when we come back is not totally back end loading the debt, but a little bit, and showing you the difference in the tax rate levy for debt versus how much more interest you would pay. And that helps kind of quantify that number a little bit for people as well. It's like, okay, this provides a little more relief on the tax levy, yet we pay a little more interest. So what does that number look like? We can certainly bring that option back as well.
That would be great, because I think the average person really cares about, this is the value of my home, and you're telling me debt service is going to be $2 or $1, or, you know, how did it compare? Because they're just going to look to see how high their taxes are
Right, they
going.
want to know how much. it
That's all
is.
people, the average person cares about.
Trustee Myers.
I would agree with the same thing as Terry said. As you mentioned before, you were reducing those amounts by 1/3 and 1/2 in those two different columns, which is a good conservative amount per se. The question I have is in regard to when you're talking about backfilling and so on, in regard to the principal interest on either end, what does that do for people who are looking at the bond way you want to structure it? Does that,
I don't think it's, from a sale standpoint, I
Yes.
mean, from a bidder who would
Yep.
like to line up the bid, it's not going to impact them. They'll bid on a structure that's back end loaded, just as they will on what we proposed here. It won't have an impact.
what about in regard to, as you mentioned before, excuse me, looking at where we are in borrowing.
And your borrowing
You-
capacity, that.
Right, we're at 68%. There was a couple of different times when you gave us bonding and so on, had mentioned a little comment in regard to the aspect that we're getting up in these numbers as such, and I'm just wondering, does that make a difference in regard to backfilling or front or back?
Yeah,
You're
I
looking
think,
at
you
the
know,
percentage?
I brought up those last couple of slides because, you know, we could have a discussion, show this to Moody's, have a very kind of offline discussion with them and say, what if, couple of what ifs. If you get to about 65% of your borrowing capacity, could it have an impact on your bond rating?
Right.
Certainly could. You're a AA2, you're highly rated. Could it drop you to AA3? But what does that mean to be dropped from AA2 to AA3? And we can quantify that for you.
Right.
It's not the end of the world by any means. It's usually about 10 basis points over the life of an issue. But it certainly is a significant factor that is looked at by Moody's, along with growth and along with all these other items. They also take into account kind of the life cycle of projects. And they're looking at these are legacy projects that you're reinvesting into the community.
Right.
They do take that into consideration as well. So could it have an impact on the rating? It certainly could.
What are the rates looking at right now for bonds for 20 years?
20 years is in the ballpark of around 4% right now.
It's up to 4. So that's what was that
Easy as
about a year ago when we were talking about a percentage that was under 1%, if I
Well, you're
remember
probably
right.
around a little over 2% for a 20-year bond at that point. Yeah,
It was double the amount.
just about.
Thank you, Phil.
Trustee Kaminsky?
Just my last comment is, you know, obviously this is projecting out into the future. The only thing on here that we're definitively doing at this point in this time frame is DPW. And we waited a long time to do that. I mean, we certainly, in a sense, I think sometimes we're too penny wise because we waited so long to replace that ancient building. Now we're stuck with 2 buildings close together. But if worse comes to worse, I mean, thank you for having some planning brought back to us. But if worse came to worse, that could be pushed out another year or whatever, depending upon what the economy is doing. Police and fire, or whatever we're doing.
Great. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, I apologize for being a little bit late. We just have one more item, and that's our reports to go through. So we'll go through these and then we'll break. With that, we'll move on to the monthly financial summary, the year-to-date revenue expenses. Anything there?
I don't have anything on either
Okay.
one of those two.
And nothing
One or
on the
two.
accounts payables?
No, I don't.
All right. Violation report, there's only 2.
Just 2.
Okay,
Steve
we're
will talk
good
about it,
there.
I think.
Any discussion, Steve?
I can speak very briefly on these. There are 2 new items from our last report that you'll see noted here. The first was related to some chickens that are being located on a residential property. We're working with the property owner to resolve that issue. The second was a home that had a variety of issues, was originally declared uninhabitable. We are working with not only the property owner, but Washington County Health Department and some social service agencies to try to address that issue. But it is slow going.
Good.
Okay, thank you. With that, there's no further business. Our next meeting will be scheduled for Monday, October 17th at 6 p.m. Is that good?
Correct. Great. Let's see it.
Great, thanks you. And with that, we're adjourned. We'll be taking approximately 5 minutes break between the 2 meetings to reset, and then we'll start the village board meeting.
Like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the village board on Monday, September 19th at or around 7 PM in the Germantown Village Hall boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Stands. Under God. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is President's Report. I only have one thing to report tonight. It was provided to me to be read if the person that had sent it to me was not at this meeting. So on earlier today, I had received communication from the president of Richfield in regards to some clarification that he would like to bring forward about information that's been presented on what is the Northeast Corridor. So it says, Dear President Walter, the labor shed for our shared geographic area along the Holy Hill Corridor for office, light industrial workers pulls from Dodge, Fond du Lac, Waukesha, and Washington counties. The village of Richfield does not have in our zoning code any multifamily housing except for two-family homes which are developed on 3.0 acre density and 0.5 acre density respectively. The minimum home size in the village of Richfield is 1,300 square feet. At one time, consultants believed that a multifamily component may be appropriate for the southeast corner of Pleasant Hill Road and State Highway 175. The village adopted comprehensive plan and future land use map were never changed to reflect that recommendation because it was just that, a recommendation. The highest and best use of land in the Northeast Corridor is office light industrial development, as we've been discussing with our community for well over a decade. As for the size of a potential building or buildings, we will see. The village knows the Northeast Corridor will support approximately 3 million square feet of building space when it is fully developed. During these challenging economic times, one would be hard-pressed to predict how that will ultimately manifest on these properties. The only thing that we can say for certain is that this development will need to cover the debt service on the $7 to $9 million in sewer and water infrastructure costs these users will pay to have installed in your community at no cost to your taxpayers. Will development draw emergency services personnel from Germantown? It rarely happens now, and it is almost equally as rare to see fire, EMS, or police responding to our office or industrial parks. I would imagine the same is true for your community too. The calls for service for assistance from Richfield to Germantown was 62 in 2020 and 2021. And the call for Germantown from assistance from Richfield in 2021 and 2020 was 9. The purpose of our intergovernmental agreement was to help reduce the tax burden on each of our respective residents. While our communities may be separated by invisible lines that denote our geographic boundaries, the water underneath our feet is a shared natural resource that has no boundaries. Intergovernmental agreements aimed at managing this shared resource benefits both our communities, reduces duplication of services, and ensures a sustainable water supply for generations to come. And that's sincerely John Jeffords, the village president of Richfield. That's all I have tonight for President's Report. Next item on the agenda is the appointments as listed on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion made to approve appointments, all listed under appointments A, 1 through 10? Okay. Motion to approve and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Baum.
A member of the audience if where they want to go. Mr.
If it's in regards to item number 9, that has already been responded to me.
Ben?
Yes,
Thank you.
as a positive, as to keep it there. Yes. All right, any other discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
just curious why, I've not noticed this before. Why are some 5-year term and others 3? Typically, they're 3. There is one for 2.
Some of them are regulated by state statute. So for instance, the Police and Fire Commission is a 5-year term by a state statute. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee reports and committee chairs with trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room on Tuesday, October 4th at 6 PM.
Thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance met just before this meeting and will meet again on October 17th. That's Monday, October 17th, 6 o'clock, this room.
Thank you. Trustee Myers.
Mr. President, Public Safety will meet October 3rd at 6 PM in this room.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring forward for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I'd like to talk just a little bit about Oktoberfest coming up. Boy, my mic is loud. Oktoberfest is in Dinesville Park this weekend, September 24th and 25th. And I'm going to talk just a little history. It won't be long, trust me. But some people, good Germans should know this, but on October 12th, 1810, Prince Ludwig and Princess Teresa, who were married, and to honor them, they created a festival on the Munich grounds. And later they became King and Queen of Bavaria. Well, they liked the celebration so much that later they decided to keep it, and every year they had a celebration in honor of their marriage. And with that, it actually started off as horse races and a festival. And later there was an agricultural festival added. So this year we celebrated in Dinesville, but of course the horse races have stopped and they've been replaced with the Dachshund Dash, or the Wiener Dog races, better known as, and that'll be at 3 o'clock on Saturday. If you haven't seen it, it's a sight to see. You will laugh. You will laugh a lot. But anyway, the second part of it was that in 1850, they started holding a parade to honor the marriage on the first Sunday of Oktoberfest. And it's now called the Costume and Rifleman Parade and has about 8,000 people participating in it annually. In Dinesville this weekend, on Sunday, we will be doing a processional in honor of that parade. And there will be a wedding couple or an anniversary couple that is scheduled to come in on a horse-drawn wagon. And that is typically led by members of the council, city administration, and the state council. So anyone who's eligible here, I think you got a call from Marge Miller, closely related Marge Miller, to attend that. So if you are able to attend, I encourage you to, and we will walk the processional in to the fest hall. Thank you.
Are you looking for formal garb in that regard, or?
If you've got it, you can wear it.
Okay.
I don't have it either.
All right, thank you, Trustee Rick Miller. And then we have an announcement that the village clerk would like to make.
I would like to introduce Angel Rettler and Tessa Hankey, if you both would stand up and turn around. They are in the Deputy Clerk, Deputy Treasurer's office. Angel Rettler has been with the village since December of 2021, and she came here from West Bend, so thank you very much. And then Tessa started last Monday, so she has a full week.
Random, still got the price tag on her.
And she comes here from the town of Paris. So thank you both very much. I just thought everyone would want to see new staff and know who they are. So very much
Congratulations to you
appreciate it.
both.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then we have one other announcement from our village administrator, Steve.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention there are 3 public information sessions scheduled related to the referendum on providing water and sewer service to the village of Ridgefield for a fee. The first one will be Thursday, September 29th at 6 PM. The second will be Tuesday, October 10th at 10 AM. The third will be Thursday, October 20th at 6 PM. All three of those will be here in the village boardroom.
Could you give those again, please?
Sure, and they are on the village website if you look on the landing page related to the referendum. But Thursday, September 29th at 6 PM, Tuesday, October 10th at 10 AM, and Thursday, October 20th at 6 PM.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
And I'd like to announce that we have tentatively planned a 4th of July meeting on October 18th at 6 PM. So stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Then we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. But if there is anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input or public appearance, you're welcome to do so. If you're within our audience, I would ask you to come to the podium in the center of the room. And if you're joining us via WebEx, I would ask that you make your wishes known so that the people that are monitoring WebEx can know that you want to participate in this item on our agenda. Just so everyone, before someone comes up, just to know that we are setting a timer for 6 minutes as listed on our agenda. So we're allowing each speaker 6 minutes to bring forth their item, their topic, or whatever they want to bring for comments to this body. So is there anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to come forward for citizen input or public appearance at this time? And then when you do come forward, please state your name and your address for the record. Anyone wishing to come forward?
Good evening, Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. On the landing page for the referendum, since you bring it up, there's a reference to the Collier's reports that we saw some of at the GGF meeting. I was wondering if those could be posted in a link so that we could read what it says, because if you read that landing page, it seems to indicate that that report is the basis for why the water is adequate going to be sold over to Richfield. So I'm requesting that that report be linked onto the landing page. Thanks. I just wanted to mention that there's a tremendous number of items on this agenda for tonight, and it's almost trustee abuse. There's a lot that needs to attention. And the Plan Commission spent several meetings going through each of the items in the spreadsheets that Director Retzlaff put together and Emily Zant put together regarding all of the changes and concerns and things that have been worked on for the last 9 months or thereabouts. There are a number of important things. I haven't seen all of you at the Plan Commission meetings, but maybe you were watching on the films, maybe you attended via Zoom, or not Zoom, FedEx, or yeah, WebEx, thanks. I don't know, but I thought I would highlight a couple of the things from the implementation plan, because the implementation plan has ramifications for the budget, for taxation, and for the culture of government in our village. And I'm not sure why my printer put it on these really big sheets, but it's actually quite helpful. So on page 191, under housing, item 2, there's maintain a balanced housing mix and concentrate new multifamily development in walkable village center areas or other NDCs that provide connections to the regional transportation network. Well, I remember distinctly sitting at a workshop, and the Friestadt district and the Holy Hill people were not particularly happy about having multifamily there. So I'm not sure why this is in here. Number 7 on the same page, ensure that existing housing stock remains attractive and functional by encouraging the rehabilitation of older housing stock. create an inventory of existing housing stock age and determine priority areas for targeted rehab. So now you're going to be watching what we're doing with their houses. One thing to note is a lot of these time frames have been moved up to 1 to 3 years. And if you look at everything that's on here, I mean, these guys are going to be really busy for an awfully long time. I don't think it's possible to get all of this stuff done. Okay, flipping over to page 195, agriculture, cultural, and natural resources. Under item 1B, use zoning to protect environmentally sensitive areas from urban development, including the creation of conservation overlay zoning districts. This was thrown in a 2-minute conversation towards the end of the Plan Commission meeting. This is a really serious tool that nobody really talked through what the effects of it would be, and it really should be understood before this gets voted on. It has a lot of implications for people being told what to do and what they cannot do with their property. I don't think that fits in with the way people in Germantown are. Under utilities and community facilities 197, let's see. Investigate the legality, need, and logistics of creating, adopting, and implementing an adequate public facilities ordinance and concurrency management system that uses adopted levels of service to ensure the approval. What the heck does that mean anyway? There's a lot of things in here that just are zoning speak. And I think that they need more attention and to be understood. So I'm asking that you separate out anything to do with the 2050 plan discussion and give it the 6 hours that the Plan Commission did to do it justice. This is an important thing for our community. The last thing I'd like to say is just highlighting what's been happening with a few of the areas in the village, like the Lannon Road and County Line Road. For months, residents have been coming to the Plan Commission meeting and objecting to a development that was proposed. Eventually, the developer withdrew the proposal and will probably come back. Over the course of the Plan Commission discussions, it was made very evident that those residents want single family because that's what's in their area right now. But somehow, multifamily got back in. Now, one thing that is good is the industrial got reduced down, but it's very clear, and if you go back and look at the tapes of the meetings, multifamily is not something that seems to fit there. It's surrounded by single family, and yes, we have Walmart and the electric plant, but doesn't it matter what residents want, what residents think? It's our tax dollars that you're using to develop this village. This is where the money is coming from, us. I'm finished. Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Coming forward, is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Toller, sorry. Scott Heffley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road. My trustees are Trustee Baum and Trustee Kaminsky. First of all, quick shout out to Deanna. I got some very positive feedback from Deanna. My neighbor got a water bill situation fixed, and he's right across the street, so I didn't get one. So far, so good, dodged a bullet. But not only the person across the street, but 3 other people in the community I know made it a point to tell me how great of an experience they had with Deanna. She was professional, helpful, prompt, got back to people right away, really helped them out. So I don't know if Deanna gets a lot of atta-girls, but you got one from people inside the village, and that's who matters. So these were unsolicited. I did not ask for these. They came organically to me. So great job, Deanna. When I saw the size of tonight's agenda, I said, whoa, and I did something I haven't done in years, maybe ever, and contacted my 2 trustees, Kaminsky and Baum, and said, I felt it was unfair. I think they used the word unconscionable because I have an English teacher mom, so he used big words. But I mean, it was thrown out there between 4 PM and Friday, and you're supposed to be able to decide things on 1,100 pages over the weekend. I hope you had a great weekend. I don't think you did. That's way too much. And then for special trustees, Rick Miller, trustee Kaminsky, Myers, and Ryder, you got another 208 pages, so you got 1,300 pages to review because we had GGF, got to go over that stuff, right? And much of this was not just a reiteration of what was already talked about, what you already discussed over the many months. This was a lot of new stuff out there. Like the final draft of the 2050 plan with the new revisions, okay? I don't expect every trustee in this room to attend every meeting. You're busy people, you have lives, you know, you do what you can for us. But this is the first time many of you have seen these revisions over the weekend, 1,100 pages worth, okay? I just don't think that's fair, and I said that to the two trustees. I brought it up, and I think it's ridiculous. You don't even do that to first-year law students at Marquette. You get 500 pages to defend, not 1,100. So on that basis, I think it's crazy to attempt to make good decisions on all of this stuff on the agenda tonight. It's ridiculous. My recommendation as a taxpayer is to table the 2050 plan discussion, hold a special village board meeting the very near future and discuss that all by itself. Pull it away from tonight. Give you time to do a review. I didn't say a month from now. I didn't say 6 years from now. I said in the near future. You guys decide when that is. Pull it out, discuss it by itself, okay? The residents, it's only been posted online since 9/13. Today's 9/19. 6 days for the residents to go through a whole 2050 plan that they don't really know what they're looking at because now it's available online, okay? And I know a lot of them aren't going to review it, but that's not the point. The point is to have it out there. That's my opinion. The board, in my opinion, has more pressing issues to face, like we need bids for the DPW. We need to get going on that. It's time sensitive. 2050 plan, in my opinion, is not immediate time sensitive, okay? It needs to be done. We agree on that, but it doesn't need to be done tonight or next week or whenever. We just need to get it done at some point. So, and I could say, well, why did this happen? Well, the board did not meet due to the Labor Day national holidays. So does that mean we're combining 2 or 3 meetings into one to catch up? Again, I don't like that idea. So that's just my opinion. The 2050 plan we know is going to happen. We just don't know exactly when. So I'll move on. A couple DPW items for Trustee Kaminsky. I see 3 things totaling $567,458. Then I hear my budget analyst man, Matt, say, we want funding sources. Well, why don't you have funding sources? Do we not do capital project estimates of what deferred maintenance and things we need in the village going forward? I'm amazed we don't do that. So now the suggestion was made to borrow to fund the maintenance on the library condenser using what I call a taxpayer-funded credit card, which is borrowing in a bond issue. Why are we borrowing to do maintenance? I don't think anyone's ready to answer me on that. It's probably a long answer, but you can't keep doing that. I don't think it's good long-term. We need to budget for things that might be happening. The people in those departments should know what's happening, and we should ask them for 5 or 10-year plans. You should set up a capital expenditure budget account for deferred and unexpected maintenance for all the major departments in the village and get it out there in front and then work with the budget from there. That's what corporate America does. The closure of the 2021 books update. Haven't heard anything. Has the CLA completed their work? You guys give them 40 grand. Is the general ledger done? Is 2021 closed? Is Baker Tilly coming in to let us know how we did? We're almost through 2022. We're a year behind, folks. Okay? And next year, we're going to use Tyler Muni, or are we going to hire a CPA firm again at additional taxpayer expense? I would like to know that. Final thing on TID 9. I'll ask you guys, you're the people who know. Is there a developer incentive or 1.1 million are roughly built into the plan to, when we get a developer in, to help them out? I'd like to know, because people are asking me. I don't know why. I tell them to ask you guys. I had Ellers talked a little bit today. They're trying to be conservative on the interest rate hikes. Interest rate hikes are a real thing. Our cost of borrowing is double what it was a year ago. Tomorrow or Wednesday, they might raise interest rates another point. You got to think about the debt service you're going to throw at the taxpayers. There's a way to structure it, yes, but the debt service to do these projects, legacy or not, is going up for you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for a citizen input or public appearance?
Hi, Katie Coates, N135W20647 Meadowlark Lane. I would like to comment on the 2050 plan. At a recent plan commission meeting, there was a mention for a plan for members to meet with people who live in certain areas of the village where there's some uncertainty about the type of future land development planned. I brought up the point that this should be done prior to the board adopting the 2050 plan. The response was that when the plan is adopted, it is not final and can be amended at later dates. However, I know this is very unlikely to happen. I've been attending village board meetings for over 15 years. Several years ago, when I and my neighbors were fighting against the land use for huge warehouses right down the street from our homes, we were told by board members that the land had to be developed that way because that is what the 2020 plan said. So when I hear that the 2050 plan can be amended, I'm extremely skeptical that I won't hear that same excuse in 5 or 10 years, that the board decided on the 2050 plan years ago, and so that's what must be adhered to. Some of you won't even be on the board anymore when I and others show up to argue against apartments and commercial districts moving into our once peaceful neighborhood. So I urge you to, at the very least, wait to adopt the 2050 plan until these neighborhood meetings have been conducted. I also encourage all of the board members to attend those meetings so that you are not simply receiving a report from the Plan Commission, but also hearing directly from residents about what our concerns are. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance? Is there anyone online? Okay, thank you.
All right, Village Board, President Walter, my name is Matt Kimmler and I live at N125 West 20314 Isabel Farms Drive. I'm here to oppose the last-minute changes that were made to the Isabel Farms neighborhood at the August Plan Commission meeting. In that meeting, an amendment was made to enlarge the Holy Hill Gateway District by taking away a large portion of the Isabel Farms subdivision and including it in the Gateway District. The area I'm speaking of lies south of Holy Hill Road and east of Goldendale Road and encompasses an area of roughly 50 acres. As a former member of the Plan Commission, I encouraged my neighbors to be active in the 2050 comprehensive plan process by making comments on the Social Pinpoint app. Many of my neighbors did participate in that process, and the result was generally negative feedback regarding increasing the industrial footprint in the Northwest Corridor, as well as concerns about dense residential housing such as RS4, RS5, encroaching upon an established RS1 neighborhood with 5-acre lots. Some neighbors also participated in the public feedback sessions held with the Plan Commission. As a result of this feedback, the Planning Commission generally accepted the idea that a buffer area would need to be created to separate different and largely incompatible land uses in this area. That idea was generally accepted among the Plan Commission. The idea that was generally accepted among the Plan Commission was that the buffer would be on the north side of Holy Hill Road. This idea can be referenced on page 509 of the digital form of tonight's agenda, which Grafe drew several alternatives of what the Gateway District could look like in the future. All these alternatives included a buffer on the north side of Holy Hill Road, referred to on that map as a proposed environmental area according to the map key. I was shocked when a neighbor reached out to me last week and informed me of the 11th hour changes to the plan regarding my neighborhood. These changes would make no room for an effective buffer between incompatible land uses. The desired uses within 600 feet of my neighborhood, according to this new comprehensive plan, would now include multifamily and senior housing, mixed-use commercial industrial, and general industrial, like the ugly 700,000 square foot buildings we now see along Holy Hill Road. To make matters worse, the new proposed density for residential in this area, so near my neighborhood, is 25 units per acre. 25 units per acre. Mathematically, that's over 100 times more dense than my neighborhood, which has a density of 0.2 units per acre, or one house for every 5 acres. In an email exchange I had with one of the trustees that's on the Plan Commission regarding this matter, they said the general idea of this new concept was going south from Holy Hill Road, there would be a transition from 1/2 acre lots to 1 acre lots to 3 acre lots, and eventually you get to the 5 acre lots that we have in the Isabel Farm subdivision. When I look at the amended map for Isabel Farms neighborhood that was passed at the August Plan Commission meeting, it is clear that there is no room for this sort of transition within the 600-foot wide parcel. There are wetlands, there are utility easements, need for stormwater infrastructure, and future roads that need to be built. In order to keep this as short as possible, please consider these main points. Number 1, please listen to the residents of Germantown regarding the future development in the area. My neighbors took time to participate in the 2015 planning process and also attended meetings, but their concerns were largely ignored, especially in the latest amendments to the plan made by the Planning Commission. Point number 2, make the buffer area for the Gateway District north of Holy Hill Road. I'm not against development, but we need enough room to transition between different land uses. I would recommend making a separate district north of Holy Hill Road that does include some higher density uses, mixed uses, as long as it looks nice. And then to the south of Holy Hill Road, you can transition to the more the less dense neighborhood. Number 3, change the density of the Isabel Farms neighborhood to be much lower. According to the 2050 plan, the density is 2.2 to 3.5 units per acre for areas within the sanitary sewer area. This equates to 1/3 acre lots by my calculations. And how do you put 1/3 acre lots next to 5 acre lots? Finally, I would like to know if the village administrator or the village planner is actively working with a developer to develop this area that was amended in August's meeting. When I was on the Plan Commission, the landowner for this area was working with Bill Carity of Carity Land Corp. To develop this land. In fact, the landowner and developer showed up at a planning meeting in which only Grafe and members of the Plan Commission were present to argue their cases for this land. When I looked closely at the amendment from the August meeting, I see the initials W. Carity, aka Bill Carity of Carity Land Corp. Under the scale and legend for this map. If this is the case, that the developer and one landowner are driving major changes to the 2050 plan, it is frankly concerning and incomprehensible. Please listen to the people who actually live in Germantown, the people who send their kids to our schools, the people who volunteer at local events, and the people who chose to live in this community because they love the rural character of the village. As I said previously, I'm not opposed to development in this area, but the right kinds of transitions need to be made between incompatible land uses, and the plan sitting in front of you tonight does not include those transitions. Thank you to the village board for your service to this community. I ask that you take my recommendations seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Hello. Name's Doug Lohman. I live at W180 N9881 Rivers Bend Circle West. Talking to you tonight about the Willow Creek Business Park District, specifically in the plan. It's page 104 under special features, the subsection transportation. The very last sentence states, the district has access to I-41 by way of the Lannon Road and County Line Road interchanges. I'd like to say to you all this evening that I hope you would take County Line Road out of that. County Line Road is just way overused already. It's just absolutely ridiculous already. And to add more pressure to that isn't a good thing to do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
All right, I am Gidget Strike. I live on West 204 North 9713 Lannon Road in Colgate. First, I want to say I'm really sad to be up here again. I hate public speaking with a passion, but here I am again. So bear with me if I'm a little nervous. I'm coming to you about the regards to the proposed rezoning land of the area on Lannon and County Line. Learning of this possible rezoning is so disheartening. For the last several months, the people on both Germantown and even Menominee Falls have been showing up tirelessly to meeting after meeting in regards to a developer wanting to put multifamily homes there, housing there. All the residents have been completely against the multifamily rezone. This room has been packed in absolute opposition for months. The residents never have lost momentum throughout this entire months and months of this. They've even gained strength when it was proposed to have non-owner occupied homes. The community does not want multifamily housing here. We are all in favor of growing the area. We are good with single family homes. We are open to other ideas, but we are not open to rentals, especially in the massive quantities in which will be allowed for the acreage. Some of us have lived here for our entire lives and we want to continue to live here. So why ruin the culture with multifamily homes and rentals? Aside from this, what will we do with the insanely busy roads? Getting out of driveways is extremely difficult. I live on Lannon Road, so getting out of there, especially during rush hour, is absolutely crazy. County line is not much better, and so adding that many more families to the areas and housing to the areas, I don't know if we'll ever get out. And nobody goes the speed limit either. They did up it, and they have just decided to go 55 instead of 40, so. I'm sorry. So one of my concerns is that in April of this year, having multifamily housing was considered undesirable. Then the next month it was considered accepted, and then the following month it was considered desirable. This seems really odd to me. Who's making those quick decisions when it has such a massive impact on the surrounding homes? Good or bad? I'm not saying it would only be bad, but who makes those decisions? As a community and as your community that you all live in, don't we want to have growth that is positive? Don't we want to have families that own their own homes that will take the same care and pride in the homes we do? And that doesn't mean the people who are rent will necessarily have an impact. What it does mean is that we are being reliant on developers to continue to keep this area up long after he has made his money and moved on. How many times have we seen beautiful apartment complexes turn into absolute garbage? This will negatively impact the entire community, not just the surrounding homes. I know it seems like all of us are just complaining about it, but it affects everybody, not just us. You are our elected officials who are supposed to be here on our behalf of our best interest, yet somehow we are not being listened to. What is really bothering me is that somehow just this particular chunk of land is singled out for rezone for multifamily, and how quickly it happened. We have been here month after month and this room has been packed. We can all attest to that. But I just found out about this yesterday. I am not online every single day trying to figure this out. So that seems really sketchy to me that it just like all of a sudden just like that. Because y'all know that this place would be packed if everybody knew that this was going on tonight. And even the people that did know tried to inform some of the neighbors, but with a last minute notice, it's very, very hard. So I hope you do really truly take your community and the neighboring communities into consideration and don't vote in favor of this rezoning. I know we're the little guys. Maybe we don't have the same deep pockets, but we are huge in numbers of our caring community members that are so deeply passionate for the place we call home, numbers who want home to be safe, beautiful, and a place to be proud of for longevity, not just for the immediate time. Please do not allow this rezoning for multifamilies, especially for these massive rental units. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Hi, Ryan Haynes, W200 N12554 Meadowbrook Court. I'm in Isabel Farm subdivision. I emailed you, as did my wife, within the last 24 hours, and I got responses from many of you, so thank you for that. My one concern, that I agree 100% with everything Mr. Kimler said. I'm not going to reiterate that, but I think it was very well stated. The one thing I want to add to it, though, and in one of the responses I got from Mr. Baum, I think it was you, it was a good response in terms of what the thinking was for carving out part of the Isabel Farms neighborhood and making it part of the Holy Hill Gateway district. But what was in that email is very different than what that district allows. The district allows a lot more than what you put in the email. I think that's a bit dangerous. I think you should put what you truly intend in the official document and not rely on emails to clarify it, because the point that was made earlier, 10 years from now, someone else looks at the document, the 2050 plan, and that's the basis. They don't have the email and the backstory. So I think it's really important that you clearly put your intent in the documents that you approve. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Hi, my name is Tammy Schneider, and I'm from West 204 North 9699 Landon Road in Colgate. I did email most of you. A few of them got kicked back to me, but so I'm going to skip kind of everything that I wrote, just to say that a little bit of what I did write is in the 2050 plan. If you look at it for the Willow Creek Business District and the tiny little part that they carved out, which they're now calling the Lannon Gateway area, there are comments there that specifically talk about, let's see, it says the comprehensive plan noted, quote, 2020 LUP classifications are industrial and AMP, commercial. Reaction to recent development proposal, Dickman and AMP fiduciary, and other public input has been to only allow residential uses and or open space at low densities to match Amy Bell neighborhood to west and not to allow industrial commercially. Additionally, they had put together, the Plan Commission had put together a second option compared to the one that they chose that is written in the plan, and it says revise section text, map, and table on pages 88 to 89, table 5.1, map 5.2, and AMP. Map 5.3, then 1, remove section text, map, and table. Remove commercial node county line at Lannon Road. 2, change boundary to remove land abutting Lannon Road and AMP county line from district and add to Amy Bell neighborhood, and only allow low density residential uses, or not change the boundary but revise list of uses to only allow residential development and specify what parcels should be excluded from the total area deemed acceptable for industrial development to the north, if any. That statement is completely different than the one that they are now going forward with, where they've carved out this small area, the Lannon Gateway, with is now listed as high density multifamily housing being acceptable. And that's what the neighbors in the area don't find acceptable. I have been the organizer of the group of neighbors that have been so vocal here. With this posting just coming out Saturday or Friday, I didn't get to everybody. I posted some on social media, sent emails, and I do network. So this time we don't have a very large gathering, but trust me, we will be back and forth like we were at previous meetings if need be. All I'm asking is that you don't vote this plan through for, if not for all the other people who are speaking against it, for our little Lannon Gateway area that popped up out of nowhere, like other people seem to be thinking happened in their own particular neighborhoods. And that, you are elected, and I hear a lot of complaints about what has happened. So please think about how you vote. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input and public appearance? I do have a couple communications that we received via email. First one says it was received on Monday, September 19th, and it says to the Village of Germantown Board, I live on Wellington Drive in a neighborhood south of County Line and east of Lannon Road. My husband and I have lived there for over 6 years. Our growing family has come to love this quiet little neighborhood. Now I understand we're not residents of Germantown, but hope you'll take our concerns into consideration. County Line Road is already a very busy street. There is a concern when it comes to congestion and more traffic that will occur with this. I understand there's room for growth within your village, but I don't think it is best fit for this particular development. The amount of beautiful green space that will be lost to another multifamily housing project is very disappointing. There's nearly a vacant strip mall just east of this development that could use some attention. I hope you think of the people this massive development will affect and the environmental impact before making this decision. And that is signed, thank you, Ashley Abel. Another email that we received today, September 19th, says to all Village of Germantown trustees and government officials, this is Mark and Lori Betcher, and we live at North 96 West 20235 County Line Road in Menominee Falls. We live directly across from the proposed unwanted development. We just wanted to state again how we are 100% against this plan. Being non-owner occupancy housing industrial to this area is just the wrong thing to do for this area. It is also so congested now, and you want to bring more people into this area, not to mention what it's going to do to our property values. You might want to consider bringing another police and fire station to the area as well, because you'll be needing it. The truck traffic, along with speeding and drag racing and noise, is out of control now. Don't add more to the already existing problems. Please reconsider this plan and send a developer packing where they can ruin somebody else's community. Very concerned, Mark Betcher, and there's no address. Next one was received today, and it states, to whom it may concern, I received a message from one of your citizens regarding Germantown's future land use, specifically the one of northeast corridor of County Line and Landon Road. Germantown and Washington County as a whole has lost a lot of open and green spaces to the building of homes and industry over the past 20 years. We need to keep as much of our green spaces as possible and would hate to see more high-density housing and industry in that area of Germantown. Though I no longer live in Germantown, I grew up along Appleton Avenue in a place of fields and a yard where I used to play, now stands Swing Time Golf. Instead of farm fields, there is now an industrial park. The houses of my friends have been replaced by many big box stores. As I said, I'm not against growth, but to see apartments, condos, industries, and big box stores replacing much of our green spaces is just a shame. Please preserve the beauty and history of our county when discussing land use. And that's sincerely Deborah Susky. Another email we received yesterday, Sunday, September 18th, says we are asking for the board to vote no to development of high-density use on the northeast corner of County Line Q and Landon Road. Also asking for the industrial section of Willow Creek Business Park has no access to County Line Q and Landon Road. Just say no to the developers wanting to build industrial among residential. Also consider the high volume of traffic that this development will bring. Germantown is known for its rural character. Please remember this when you vote on how you will develop this corridor. And this is Dean and Sherry Fox, and they live at W203 North 9470 Bittersweet Lane, and that's in Menominee Falls. Next email we received was also Sunday, September 18th, and it says, hello, as a resident of Isabel Farm subdivision, I have to voice my extreme concerns about the suggested 2050 land use plan to include industrial, commercial, mixed use, or high-density residential on the southeast corridor of Horley Hill and Goldendale Road. We moved to Germantown 10 years ago and specifically chose to build in Isabel Farms because of the large country lots, quiet surroundings, and low traffic. The 2020 land use plan at that time showed that the leaders of Germantown were on board with keeping this area rural and residential, solidifying our decision. Obviously, that has changed in a big, obtrusive way. The industrial area encroaching on our homes is unbelievable. Please put a stop to it at Goldendale. Our backyard borders the farmland on Holy Hill Road. I could go on and on about the negative impact large companies or highly dense residential land will have on our quality of life and its home value. Please think of your current village residents like us in Isabel Farms before agreeing to convert the land into possible industrial, commercial, mixed use, or even more dense residential neighborhood. I'm trusting that you will take our neighborhood concerns to heart, and that's Deanna Haynes, and there's no address. The last one I have says, good morning. This one came in this morning. And it says, I want to echo the concerns of my wife, Deanne, sent all of you below. I'm extremely disappointed to see the village considering anything other than residential for the area southeast of Holy Hill and the Goldendale intersection. This was nowhere in the plans when we decided to build our home in Isabel Farms. Had we had known that about that possibility, we likely would have built elsewhere. It's not fair to the residents of the area to now allow mixed-use buildings to creep that close to our subdivision. I will be at the meeting tonight to further express my concerns. I also want to express my disappointment in the look of the Holy Hill Road industrial development west of Goldendale Road. I'm not disappointed that the area was development for industrial use. I am disappointed how it developed. Visually, a few of the buildings look imposing as they are too close to the road, and the rainbow of colors, including the Briggs red and black next to the dielectric blue, is just not a good look. I realize that is water over the dam at this point, but I drive by there 2 times a day because I work in Hartford. And frankly, it's an eyesore. We should strive to portray a better image of Germantown to those who live or work in the village. Lastly, would the residential area being considered just north of Isabel Farm subdivision only include single family, or are you considering multifamily? I am absolutely against putting multifamily in this area. Again, you must consider the existing Isabel Farm subdivision, which has all single family homes on 2 or 5 acre lots. To keep the rural feel as best as we can at this point, that area north of Isabel Farm should only be single family residential and not high density single family homes on small lots packed in like sardines. It just doesn't fit with the area. Thank you, Ryan Haynes. That's all the communications that we had received in regards to tonight's meeting. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward within our audience or joining us via WebEx for citizen input or public appearance? All right, thank you. If there is no one else, we can go on to the next item on the agenda, which is consent agenda.
Motion to approve A through D.
Motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda items A through D. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers? Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper? Aye. President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is unfinished business, which there is none. Public hearings, there are none listed. So we get down to new business, starting with new business. Item A, Brian Deppis, SEH, Agent for Thomas Rackow, property owner located at West 140 North 11066 Country Air Drive, Ordinance 17-2022 to rezone 5.12 acres from the A1 Agricultural District to the RS Single Family Residential District and a 2-lot certified survey map. To give us more information and background on this new business item A, we'll turn our meeting over to our Associate Planner, Emily Zant.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes?
I would like to make a motion before we get into item A. I'd like to make a motion for new business D that be removed from tonight's discussion, that a separate meeting would be handled as the only item and the agenda in the future.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Myers, what would you propose that meeting to be on? What day?
Whatever administration wants to set this up as soon as possible or whatever.
Further discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
What is the deadline for approving the 2050 plan?
There's none.
Well, the state expects something. They want movement forward, but
Sure, the statutes require that it's updated every 10 years. Don't really have a penalty component
Okay.
to that, other than to say that any of our certain actions need to be consistent with that plan.
Okay.
And if you don't have a plan, then arguably you can't take some of those actions.
okay, so in other words, we have a month or so to look at this, correct? Nobody's going to care. And my point being, I would like more time to look at this based on the changes that did come through, that we've all read through it, but I'm going to look at it in light of what these people have said and take another look at some of the borders of these areas, what we mean by multifamily. I would like this to be a separate meeting, so I totally agree with this, but I think it should be after our budget period. We have to get the budget done, and that's the next thing up, isn't it? And this has nothing to do with the budget, the 2050 plan. Am I correct?
Some may argue otherwise.
Well, give me that argument.
I would,
Trustee Miller.
I would just say that we do need to look at our budget, and I agree with you that we need to look at the budget first so we know where we are, we have a baseline, and that the 2050 plan can come after that.
Right, because I'm not saying the budget has anything necessarily to do with this. I'm saying that we are going to have, for those of you who've been on the board for a while now, we have several more meetings
Yes, we
per
do.
week to
Yes.
get through the budget.
Yes.
And then we do run out of time in the evenings because we all have our committee meetings, our board meetings, and then additionally our committee of the whole budget meetings. So if this can be pushed to early November, by then we're done with our budget meetings, either late October, early November,
I say mid-November.
mid-November.
Get it after the vote.
Why, Mr. Baum is shaking his head. What difference would it make?
In the discussions we've had at Plan Commission meeting, we have pulled out every area that has been talked about and asked the planning department to schedule special meetings for those areas because they are questionable. There's issues that the residents have. We want to put together what's being called an implementation plan. During the process of putting these plans together, I was doodling sketches as to what these ideas could be. We need to hone those things out with those people.
So when do you think this should be delayed to? Because we have to do that before we approve a 2050 plan.
I don't think we have to delay the 2050 plan because it's, from my standpoint, it's an evolving document that's going to change year after year after year. And this just gives us a starting point. And then when developers come in, they're going to start asking it to be changed.
Personally, I'm hearing a lack of comfort in that decision from our audience here. And I will tend to agree with them that if their comfort level would be increased by having these meetings first, what's the rush? Because especially along that Holy Hill corridor there, where there was some talk of more immediate development. I mean, I think these residents deserve to have those meetings, like they're wondering what's going to happen. On the south, I think it's what, the southeast?
There isn't immediate development.
Okay, well,
We want
but there's a misunderstanding of that then.
Yeah, but we want to get their input, so we want to have these meetings. So are we getting those scheduled anytime soon, or where are we at with that?
As you are aware, we discussed this with the Plan Commission, and it was made clear that the original proposal for the project included more detailed analyses for a couple of areas. And it was never the intention to do thorough neighborhood level meetings with everyone or for every one of the neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. We have 20 neighborhoods, we have 10 districts, and 2 corridors. The plan was to adopt a set of parameters that deal with land uses for each of those neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, and then prioritize a schedule for doing the detailed, let's call them neighborhood level master plans for those neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. The priority list at this point, at least in my mind, is the village center first, the Holy Hill Gateway area second, and probably the Freistadt district third. And coming in a close fourth would be the Willow Creek Business Park, now combine that with the Lannon Gateway neighborhood. 2 of those we've heard about this evening. So if your desire is to now put the process on hold pending more detailed analyses, neighborhood meetings, which at some point we've heard we should have, half a dozen meetings with 60% of the people participating in order for it to be a legitimate planning effort, that is going to set us way back, and put on hold a lot of the plans and other activities for implementation that we've discussed, including moving forward on our village center area. And I'm sorry, Terry.
That's not my suggestion at all, to have all these meetings. My whole point is, even if we don't have those meetings first, there are a couple of topics that came up here with the Willow Creek and with Isabel Farms that I think could very, very easily be handled and managed if we had a separate committee of the whole meeting after our budget period. I don't care about the community meetings or the neighborhood meetings, okay? Whatever you're doing there, take that as a separate issue and do it. But my point is, let's put these people's minds at rest if you have to make some adjustments to what you mean by multifamily homes. Is it a townhouse? Is it apartment? Is it senior center? They want to know who their neighbors are going to be. That's what they're asking. And for Willow Creek too, I'm pretty much anti-multifamily. I mean, been on record with that all along. I think it would not hurt to allow us to have this discussion we're having right now at a committee of the whole meeting and say, hey, look, what adjustment can we make? Is there something we can do for Isabel Farms? Is there something we can do for that Willow Creek area along County Line Road, I should say? And to give them some peace of mind, if that's what we want to do. Maybe you want multifamily there. Maybe the majority of the committee, maybe the majority of the committee does. It's not all up to me.
I don't think it's all up to us. I want to hear from the residents.
There you go.
Work with the residents. And I want to have, it may not be one meeting, it may be 2, 3, 4 meetings. I'm not sure we need to have 6 meetings for all these areas.
Okay.
But I want to have those meetings on those 4 or 5 specific neighborhoods that we pointed out that do need the critical scrutiny. But that is the higher level of review. And once we have that higher level of review and we've talked to everybody, and what I keep doing in meetings is drawing little pictures, then we have a clearer view of what should go into this area with their input.
And then you amend that immediately. You amend the plan. Okay.
That's why I say this is a fluid document.
So if it's so fluid that we could take the multifamily out of those areas, and if you decide to add it back in, you could add it back in.
Other boards could, if that's what the plan commission and whatever development group feels that they want to put in that area. But that's all part of the process of what they would have to propose based on the zoning that's there and the process of either through a conditional use or CUP or some sort of PUD. But that's all has a process of public hearings and citizen input for it.
I understand that.
What we will lose, you still want the floor?
No, I'm just saying, I understand I know all that stuff. I mean,
All right.
been
You
here a
still
while.
have the floor now. Do you,
No, you can have it.
okay. Trustee Baum, you've been sharing the floor. Do you have anything else?
I'll chime in if I have to.
We've had a stall on the 2050 plan based on COVID, and what we lost was momentum. And what we lost was continuity of thought and process as we lost that momentum. We've gained some of that back now. To stall this out to November, you will lose momentum again, and you will lose a lot of the discussion that we had, a lot of the discussion that we had in regards to the meetings we've had already, including what has been part of the citizen input. You will forget those things. It will not be clarity of mind and close to mind because it'll be November. That's 2-3 months from now.
I think everybody here is happy to come back and remind us of how they feel.
This is appearing to me to be a stall for what is a difficult decision. It is a difficult decision, and it is up to this board to make decisions like this in the 2050 plan, but it is not rock solid. It is basically a guide going forward and replacing the 2020 plan. You can stall it out to next year. All it falls back to then is the 2020 plan as it stands today. So development occurs, the process still goes on, and everything else can continue to happening. Developers can come forward and make recommendations on any of the properties that are in question right now based off of the 2020 plan. So it doesn't stop that process. But what it does stop is some of the new things that we've brought forward in the 2050 plan and some of the other recommendations for other areas. And the discussion of those areas, is it acceptable? Does it work? Should we consider other things? And by stalling it out to November, you'll lose that. You'll lose that continuity, and then you're going to have a fractured plan, which we already somewhat have based on what happened in the break with COVID. Further discussion. Trustee Chan Miller.
I respectfully disagree with you. I think that we have heard from the residents of Germantown time and time again. They have clearly stated the Lannon Road is in my district. They've been saying single family, and 3 times we had a proposal from a developer that had finally on the third try had 39 single-family homes. So I think that we've been moving forward as fast as we can, but we have to stop, take a breath, do our budget, get the DPW going. If you want to get the police department going, fine. But we need to look at this plan with all the changes that came through from the Plan Commission. You guys worked real hard, but to me, it looked like it kind of went backwards. Like it had some single family and now it's back to multifamily. So I have the floor.
Yes, you
So
do.
I like to look at the data and compare it to what we had formerly, which was draft number 1 from June 25th. Now we have a draft number 2 from September 13th. And we're giving from Friday at 1:17 p.m. till today to digest and to just digest over 500 pages just in the 2050 plan with all the amendments and all the line items. And I appreciate how it's laid out. I really do. It's a lot of work. But give us time to do our job. Give us time to listen to our residents. Give us time to review the information. You need more than a weekend. When do you get to spend with your family? I don't know. So I say, hold it off till after the election. I'm sure Deanna has a lot to do. We have a lot to do with Administrator Krecklow, with the budget, and Matthew. So
Trustee Kaminsky.
next.
You know, I don't want to comment on what you said, Jan, but just one quick thing. It doesn't mean that there won't be business development along county line. I'm not saying I'm gonna, you know what I mean? The multifamilies was sticking out in my head. But I mean, then fine, if you think we're gonna lose momentum, then let's meet next Monday. But I'm just saying, I personally would like more time to read this because it is different than what I read 3 weeks ago online when I downloaded the PDF. And I would personally like to see, and maybe have somebody, maybe David, you, from the Plan Commission, actually walk us through the Plan Commission amendments and tell us why, you know, and just to help us get our heads wrapped around it, because it'll help. It'll help us understand, it'll help us understand where our residents are coming from and where the Plan Commission came from in approving this. I don't have to delay it till after the budget. If we want to throw another meeting in there, fine, we'll make it work. But then let's get it done next Monday or one of our free days and just have a committee of the whole meeting.
Further discussion. Trustee Pieper.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion on the floor to have the next meeting be on the 26th, week from today.
As a committee of the whole to only discuss the 2050 plan?
Correct.
Second.
That's your motion to amend? Motion made and seconded to amend the original motion to, state the original motion. I don't want to misstate. Trustee Myers.
Motion by Myers, second by Hudson for new business item D to be removed from tonight's agenda for a separate meeting.
Okay, and you've just put a date to that separate meeting.
Next
All
Monday.
right, thank you. All right, further discussion on the motion to amend. No further discussion?
I have it.
Oh,
further
sorry,
discuss-
Trustee
sorry.
Dan Miller.
Yes, I would like to push it out to November 15th. Amend the amendment. I don't know if I can do that.
There's a motion to amend the amendment to, instead of September 25th to November 15th.
Typically, under Robert's rules, you can't
Yeah, no,
amend
you
an
can't.
amendment.
There's a motion, there's an amendment on the
All
floor.
right, then let's go through it and then you can change it if you like.
Gotta vote on this first.
Further discussion on the motion to amend. We've done that before, though.
Yeah, we have.
We've amended after votes have been taken, but I'm not aware of any instance where we've amended a pending motion to amend.
That's when it gets fun. It could. Further discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Opposed, raise your hands. 2 opposed. Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. Trustee Jan Miller.
I'd like to change the date for the proposed movement of the 2050 plan discussion to November, because there's a plan commission meeting on the 26th. And the date I'm looking at is November 14th. There's another plan commission meeting
Plan commission on the 26th.
on, why not?
Looking at the plan.
Oh,
So you're now, your motion to.
you have one on the 14th?
We have a plan commission meeting on the 14th. Yes, that would be the second Monday.
And then what about the, well, that can be moved if you don't have a meeting on the 26th. Can that be moved? Plan Commissioner.
You're saying move it to the 28th? No, it's normally on the second. The fourth Monday is usually held in reserve for any requirement of additional development or any types of additional discussion of the Plan Commission. Didn't get in the 14th, but the 14th has traditionally been Plan Commission meeting, which is the
What
second
about
Monday.
Tuesday, the 15th?
That's what was part of your original
Yes.
amendment. So you want to go back to so your motion is to amend September 25th to November 15th.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it was the 26th.
So we have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Right. One more time, motion to amend. Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Further discussion on the motion as amended. No further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, raise your hands. Two opposed. All right, three. Who was the third? Oh, I see. Okay. Mr. Nyrider. All right, so everybody in the audience that's here tonight to listen to this, it'll be on September 25th at
No.
26th, I'm sorry, at 6 PM?
Yes.
As committee of the whole or a special village board meeting?
It would have to be a board meeting if you think you might adopt it, so.
So it'll be a special village board meeting on the 26th at 6 PM.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Trustee Nyrider.
with setting a date, is our planning staff able to make that? I mean, I'm just asking. Right. It would be kind of fruitless to be.
Wouldn't miss it. All right, that
Oh,
then
God,
takes
got another
care of new
date.
business item D. So back to new business item A. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for participating. New business item A, Brian Deppis, SEH, agent for Thomas Rackow, property owner located at West 140 North 11066 Country Air Drive, ordinance 17-2022 to rezone 5.12 acres from the A1 agricultural district to the RS1 single-family residential district and a two-lot certified survey map. Emily Zant will give us more information and background on this new business item.
Thank you. The subject property is located in the southeast corner of Mequon Road and Country Air Drive. The current zoning is A2 agricultural. The 15-acre parcel contains an existing single-family dwelling and accessory building on the south portion of the property. The purpose of these applications is to divide off and sell 5 acres with the single-family dwelling and accessory building separate from the existing farmland to the north. The proposed CSN will create a 5.1 acre parcel which would be proposed lot 1 on the south, and a 10.48 acre parcel or proposed lot 2 to the north that will remain in agricultural use at this time. With the proposed CSM, a rezoning of proposed lot 1 is required from A2 agricultural to RS1 single family residential, which requires a minimum lot size of 5 acres. If proposed lot 2 is developed in the future, the extension of sanitary sewer from the north side of Mequon Road would be required. The water utility already serves properties along Country Air Drive. The village engineering consultant has identified a few technical corrections, which are listed in a memo dated September 2nd. This has been added as a condition of approval. So the Plan Commission recommends approval of the rezoning from A1 agricultural to RS1 single-family residential for the 5.1 acres on the south side of the property. And then recommends approval of the certified survey map for the 15.67 acre property located at W140N11066 Country Air Drive with one condition.
Motion to approve ordinance 17-2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Certified survey map? Was your motion for everything or just for the motion to approve the change? Okay, sometimes you get separated. One was for the motion to approve the change, so yours included both?
Yes.
Okay, then that takes care of new business item A. Thank you, Brian, for coming. Next item under new business is item B, 2023 recommended budget. Give us more information on this. We'll bring forward our budget director, Matthew Useline. Matt.
Something a little lighter for tonight. I'd like to begin by thanking Administrator Krecklow and all the department heads for all the work they've put in on this budget. It's been a couple months process here. I'm so excited to finally present it to you. As always, one of the main goals the board sets for us and as employees is controlling the tax burden. Again, in the 2023 recommended budget, we do just that. The total recommended levy increase is 2.35%, and that does not include any levy from the TIDS. In addition, the 2023 recommended budget continues its investment in infrastructure throughout the village, maintaining asphalt road funding levels in previous years, as well as $3 million in utility infrastructure. As always, question?
Should we hold the questions till after the presentation?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, thanks.
As always, the village is only as strong as the people it employs. The 2023 budget includes a 2% pay adjustment, fully funded the police and mechanic positions that were partially budgeted in the 2022 budget, provides additional community development staff, as well as position upgrades in the Department of Public Works. Growth within the village continues to be strong. The estimated assessed value for 2022 is about $2.9 billion. This is a 1.4% increase over 2021. This is just an estimate as we'll receive the final numbers from DOR in October. Overall, the village's net new construction number, which is what we are allowed to raise the levy by, was 2.23%. As a dollar figure, without including the values from the TIDS, it's about 197,000. With the TID, it'd be 234,000. The overall recommended levy for the village is just shy of 14 million at $13,989,754. This is a $320,000 increase over 2022. 209,000 of that is from the general levy. An additional 111,000 is from the debt service levy. Overall, the general fund levy increases about 1.98%, while the debt service levy increases just under 4%, for a total levy increase of 2.35%. On this screen, you'll see a breakdown of the general fund by department. As you'll notice, the majority of the expenditures within the village fall within police, fire, and DPW, making up just over 75% of all expenditures within the village. Some of the general fund highlights for you. As I previously mentioned, we have fully funded the police officer and mechanic that were partially funded within the 2022 budgets. We provide additional part-time staff in the community development department for a code enforcement officer, as well as a community development intern. And we upgraded one of the crew leaders in highway to an additional foreman. It also includes a 2% pay adjustment for all employees based on review, as well as increased revenues in the recreation department and miscellaneous revenues. You'll see the overall levy increased 1.98% in the general fund. So what would this impact on a $250,000 assessed value home? In the 2020 budget mill rate was about $4.90. The 2023 estimated budget mill rate is about $4.96, about a 6 cents increase over the 2022 budgeted mill rate. This is still the second lowest it's been since 2012, last year being the lowest it had been since 2012. So under the current recommended budget, the average homeowner will pay about $15 more in village property taxes than they did this previous year. The whole year. Screen's a little smaller. As always, we like to include everything that was recommended by departments to us that had to be removed from the budget to balance it. In front of you, you'll see approximately $533,000 in additional requests that had to be pulled from the budget to balance it. There are a variety of these projects that we are recommending using 2020 year-end surplus to fund, but had to be pulled to balance the budget for 2023. In addition, at Public Safety Committee, there's been a lot of discussion about additional public safety officers, whether it be in the police department or fire department. The police department had recommended an additional 4 officers for the 2023 budget, and the fire department had recommended an additional 11 firefighters, EMSs, as well as an additional fire chief. As we move throughout this budget, these were unable to make it into the 2023 budget, but should be considered moving forward as we move throughout this budget process. The next steps for the 2023 budget would to be schedule the CAL meetings and for myself to finalize the state and intergovernmental revenues.
As they come in.
And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
Okay, where do I begin? When will you have the When will you have the 2021 budget closed or audit by Baker Tilly?
I'll defer to the village administrator.
We are working through that process at this point. I expect that we'll have that closed in hopefully in October. We are still trying to schedule the time with Baker Tilly for them where they're able to come in and complete the audit.
Okay, so October, not till October. Okay, on page 2, you've got investment in infrastructure, $3 million, just plain utility. What, can you expound on that? What kind of utility?
It'd be for water and sewer within the village.
What big project?
I think the largest project in water and sewer is an MMSD project. I don't have the exact road in front of me, but I can provide the information. I was for this presentation, I was focusing mostly on the general fund and the tax levy.
That's in the general fund, right?
No, this will be just the water and sewer utility.
That would be
Yeah.
from the
They'll be
utility
tax-
itself, Trustee Miller.
Yeah, it
Right,
shouldn't even be in,
right.
really.
Okay. And you're saying it's 1.4 increase over 2021, but we don't have the 2021 numbers.
No, that'd be the assessed value. Was a 1.4% increase in 2021 assessed values, which is the total value estimation for the village.
Of the village.
The entire village, correct.
The entire village, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And then the total levy increase of 2.35.
Correct.
With net new construction,
Not included.
not included.
Or the TID portion of the net new construction, not included. The village
Okay.
board instructed us not to include any net new construction as a result of the TIDs.
And you have this great graph here about where the money's going. DPW, police, and fire have, as you said, 75%. And just to be clear, what is your definition of general government? Is that
It was
administration?
Administration, village board, IT data processing, our actual general government fund. believe that's it.
And community development,
Community
is that our?
development is,
matters?
yes, it's inspection and community development.
Okay.
Or info.
And do you have head counts for all those departments?
Yes, not in front of me, but yes, I
Okay,
can provide
you can
that
get that
information.
for me. Okay.
Yep.
And so on the general fund highlights, we know about the police officer and mechanic, fully funded. What is a code enforcement officer?
Yes, so, and I don't want to get into, don't want to get into too fine of detail here. I was gonna say that for the committee, the whole meetings. But the idea behind the code enforcement officer is that when individuals from the village come in and have a complaint about a fence or a tree overhanging, it's on staff to go out then and investigate that complaint or that issue, to write up a full report and bring it back to the community development folks. Typically, that is Lori, who sits at the front desk in the community development center. So when those requests come in, and if they come in often, she's away from her desk for an hour or two at a time to investigate those complaints. This position would be on a as-needed basis, part-time. If a complaint comes in, this individual will go out and investigate it, write up a report, and provide it to the community development staff, explaining
so
the complaint.
An outside liaison to take a look at the.
Yeah, it'd be a part-time individual on an as-needed basis.
And community development intern. Do we have an internship program here at the village?
We do have interns throughout the village. We don't have a formalized intern program. There's a couple interns in DPW department.
Engineers.
Yes. But we don't have a full-on intern program per se, but we do have interns throughout the village.
So this would be in Jeff's area, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, that's new. And good. So one of the, you did this realistic kind of housing and what the mill rate's going to be. In the GGF meeting, we had Ellers come in and they used the example of a $350,000 home. And I think that $350,000 would be a little more realistic in our community.
Yes.
So
if you'd like, I can reach out to our assessor and ask what the average assess.
I just like to be congruent.
Yep, not a problem.
Sorry. Parking lot, I'm not going to even ask about because why? And thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Except that we were, I'm on Public Safety Committee, and we are looking forward to getting a plan from both the police and the fire department regarding implementation of extra staff. So that will be forthcoming. We've asked for it. Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, two things. First off, the comparison of $250,000 home. I asked that question last year and said it should go up to 350. Well, in reality, that's kind of the average, or that's the median number for the village. So we use 250. You can do it 350, just, do the math. But the other question I want to ask is about assessed values, because mill rates can be tricky. Is there any change in assessed values to a current home in Germantown from last year to this year? Is it going to be adjusted at all?
Answer that. So we have already had board review. So that is the time when current homeowners, property owners can come forward to discuss their assessed value and ask for that to be changed. And letters would have been sent out to those that had a change. That would have come from the assessors. There would have already been notice to those individual property owners for that. There would have been some that would have seen a change, especially if they added on or had something changed to their home, a recent sale. There could be some change there. But you are correct that right now, our assessed value, do you remember in 2019, we went through the whole revaluation
Right.
process?
Full revaluation.
We have went backwards a little bit because of the way the markets are right now. So we are at a point where we need to do a market update, and that might have been on the parking lot where we need to have that market update done. That isn't a fun thing, but it needs to be completed again because of how the markets are right now.
But if your assessed value last year was $250,000, it will be $250,000 again on your tax bill this year.
Unless you receive
Unless,
a notification of change.
okay, unless there's an exception. Okay, good, thank you.
Trustee Hudson?
Yeah, I just, I want to pick up on something Trustee Miller said, and she was maybe a little kinder than I'm going to be. So the question was certainly asked at Public Safety for a plan going forward, and how many more policemen and more firemen do we need? And it was asked that be delivered to that committee in a plan to justify. I think the request was going out in 5 years. And I am really surprised and very caught off guard that there are specific numbers of personnel in here. So that tells me that the plan is completed and was just never given to the committee. So where did these numbers come from?
Those are numbers that the two departments submitted in their budget requests, which will be discussed at the committee of the whole meetings with the plan coming forward at that point.
And is that plan that was requested from those two departments, was that ever completed, or are we just going to ignore the request?
My understanding was that the Public Safety Committee wanted that discussed as part of the budget process.
No.
We can bring this back to Public Safety and discuss it there as well as part of the budget process.
Anybody on that committee, is my mind?
No, you're right.
No, we asked them to bring a,
Sorry.
I do believe they gave us those numbers. I remember for police. And
In their initial request, I think, and then you asked
Just
for
in the
something more
meeting.
formal.
yes, we did. And requested it be more, look something like a 5-year plan because
So
it's a lot.
So we're gonna talk about this $1.6 million as part of the budget, and that the request for the plan, are we just gonna table that request? And if that's the answer, that's the answer, and I'll accept that answer.
I would say we're very much in the same position we were a year ago, where we're looking at basically the same numbers for both the police department and the fire department in terms of their staffing needs. And given the levy limits, it's not possible to fund the new positions within the property tax levy.
No,
So
but
we discussed options for that last year as part of the budget process, and the options really remain the same. And I think it's important to have a discussion on that again. But I'm not sure what else. I think the police department, the fire department have presented on multiple occasions what their staffing needs are. We presented options for how to fund that going forward. And I think, during the budget process is, in my opinion, the appropriate place to discuss that.
But it should still be recognized that it was brought forward in the committee, and that request should still be honored as part of what the long-term plan is, because even when we went from part-time or paid on call to full-time fire department, we asked for a crawl, walk, and run program of how it can be implemented each year, because you're not going to add 11 firefighters to any one budget. You're not going to add 7 police officers to any one budget. Every $100,000 increase to the budget is 1 point to the increment or to the levy increase. So we don't, first of all, in regards to what village administrator said, we can't increase the levy that much. And the only other place to get it, if you were looking to even consider adding that, would be to cut in all other areas.
No, and I certainly understand that, but if we look at this as, you know, I don't think that there's anybody in this room that thinks that we're going to get 11 firefighters in 1 year. But I think that if we have a plan to do it over 5 years or 6 years, we might be able to accomplish that.
Right,
And that's what was asked for.
right, as we have before. Exactly, from paid on call to full-time.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it requires that plan because that is in your guide and your map of how to get there.
And that's what the request was.
I would leave it to your committee chair to reinforce that request with both chiefs and make sure that it brings forward in one of his upcoming meetings. And you have, I don't think John's here, but Mike is here, so I think he hears us. And I'm sure Mike will reiterate, or somebody will reiterate it to John so that he knows as well that they're still looking for that plan at the Public Safety Committee level. Anything else, Trustee Hudson? Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee Kaminsky.
I think this is really a great starting point. You did the same thing last year, and I appreciate it very much. I think what we have to be careful of on the board is that we look at this as though it's the proposed budget. We have to go through our committee of the whole sessions where we actually dissect these things. This is like hanging like a little piece of red meat out there and getting us either to snap at it or run away from it. And we just have to stop that and just say, thank you very much for this. And I look forward to setting the budget of the whole meetings, which I assume and hope is our next step here tonight.
Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Myers.
It's not a really question. I was just going to say to Matthew that the shared revenue estimates for 2023 come up to $826,166.31. You probably got that also from the state, which came out on September 13th.
Yep, I did receive those estimates. Yep.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our budget director? As Trustee Kaminsky has stated, the next point would be to schedule those meetings. I look forward to them. I think this is going to be a very interesting budget. I think we're looking at every bit of what's being requested in expenses versus what's being budgeted in revenues. You're gonna have to look at every line and see what can be adjusted, and it's gonna take big swings to first of all look at what levy the board is comfortable with, if any, in increase, and then to see if we want to start managing or how we're going to start managing the increase requested in police and fire, because that is an important area to consider. One of the things that you need to think about as well, going forward, even into the next voting season, is the county is coming forward with a referendum to increase property taxes to add to the Washington County Sheriff. There's pluses and minuses to that. The county executive has laid out his ideas as to why he thinks that's a good idea. And for communities like Richfield and Polk, it's a benefit. To communities like us, not so much. So it's all things to look at as you go to the voting, but the next committee of the whole meetings, I think everybody come ready to talk about all the issues, because the department heads will be here to defend and give reasons as to why they feel that what they're proposing should be as part of the budget. Trustee Kaminsky.
What's our deadline for getting all these meetings done?
I believe we are looking to adopt the budget, and Deanna, please correct me if I'm wrong, on November 21st. But it has to be published for public hearing beginning of November. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be published for 15 days prior. So our deadline, in order to meet the paper's deadline,
October 16th.
the last possible day, if you want to have additional discussion, would be October 24th.
Okay.
That's just so we can meet that publication.
That's what we're going to do next.
Other questions? Other questions?
Let's just schedule the meetings. Anybody have any suggestions?
Trustee Myers?
Is it possible, Matthew, that you can give us what you gave last year? How much money was left over from the budget the year before?
Don't know that yet.
And could you give us an update again in regard to ARCA money? What has been spent? Yeah, what is left? I
For
think that's
ARPA.
important for the, for the meeting of the whole.
Yep, I can certainly do that.
Would you agree, Steve?
I would, yes.
And you too, Dean, sorry.
Yes, I would agree.
Thank you.
Schedule some meetings.
All right, schedule meetings for committee of the whole. What days works best for most? Usually it's.
Usually it's Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
Right.
I'll make a motion. We do have meetings on September 28th.
If I could just butt in for a quick second, if we
Sure.
could not start them next week, that'd be much appreciated. Tyler Munis, our our implementation team will be here the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, implementing the utility billing system, which will be a full 8.5 hours for me working with them. I just want to give enough time for myself and for you to get the budget materials out to you in a timely manner.
Think we can get it all done in
Fifth.
this meeting?
How about the 5th?
We got it done in 3
You know,
meetings last
we need
year.
3 meetings.
Meetings.
3 meetings. We got it done.
And a fourth in option.
Yeah.
I can't do it next week. I've got 3 weeks before it's got to be done.
You got the 4th, 11th, 18th,
I would go-
and you got to have it done by the 24th.
Going Wednesday.
Wednesday, how about this 5th?
You could have one on November 2nd, or, that's a Wednesday.
It's got to be, I thought we said we had to be done by the
Am I right?
October 24th.
24th.
Oh, okay.
November.
The publication deadline. So just a suggestion.
Fifth,
is it
12th,
okay
and
if I
19th.
give
Yes,
a
go ahead.
suggestion? So just a suggestion would be October 5th, because October 3rd and October 4th are meetings, Public Works meeting on October 4th. So a suggestion would be October 5th, October 6th. The next week, suggestion would be October 12th and 13th because of Plan Commission and then an informational meeting on the 11th, just as a suggestion. And then the next week, you could use part of the 17th if you so chose.
That's GGF.
Correct. And then there's a fireworks meeting on the 18th, is that right? And then Thursday, Wednesday is Park and Rec, and then Thursday, Senior Advisory. So in the evening, you have another referendum informational session meeting on the 20th. So suggestions are the 5th, the 6th, the 12th, the 13th. And then 17th.
Do them back to back to back like that. I'd have 4 meetings in a row.
No, she's just giving us open
No,
dates.
I'm just
So,
filling it.
Terry, she's just giving us open dates, so we
Okay.
can do
We
like
could do,
12th, the 17th, like for 3
Yeah.
meetings. And
That's
then potentially the 21st
How
is
does
Thursday.
the 17th work? We already have 2 meetings. We have GGF and Village Board.
Why don't we just start with one meeting first?
No, you got to set them all together.
That was October 5th. The first
Fifth?
meeting.
How about
October
5th, 12th, and 19th?
Sounds
Fifth, 12th, and
Yeah.
19th.
Good to me.
What, 19th? Deanna, is that still okay?
Well, the 19th is Park and Rec Commission.
What time is it? Is
5:30, 5:30.
How long do those go for?
It'll
be short.
An hour.
So we can start that one by 6:30 maybe?
Sure.
Yes.
All
Instead
right, where do you want to start the other meetings at? What time?
6.
6? All right, so the dates then chosen were the,
12th, 12th,
okay,
but 6:30 on the 19th.
6:30 on the 19th.
And then the 24th would be if we have.
if needed. That's good.
19.
All right, that's your motion, trustee Baum?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, thank you, Matt, is new business item C, K-9 squad car setup in an amount not to exceed $20,487.67.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Trustee Kaminsky?
Point out that it's not really 20,000, that's generous donors, correct?
Correct. The Friends of the Germantown Canine Committee contributed $15,000 to the overall
So
cost.
for anybody watching, it's more like $5,000. So to set up the vehicle, thanks to
Total amount is for 20,
generosity.
and then out of the fund then would be 15,000, and 5,000 remains.
Right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, just clarification. This does not come out of general fund. The 5480 is coming out of the K-9 fund.
Which is also supplemented with donations. Trustee Jan Miller.
What dog gets this new vehicle?
Hotto, the older of the canines.
What's its name?
Hotto.
Hotto?
Further discussion? No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper? Aye. Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
Aye.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Sorry, Mike.
Next item under new business is item E, potential relocation improvements to lift station number 6. Give us some more information, background on this item. We'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Zimmerman.
So this item was brought before Public Works and Highways Committee due to a parcel in red coming up available for sale down near Fleet Farm. Lift station number 6 is that little area in yellow. It was constructed in 1975 to serve the Rivers Bend condos and development at that time. And now obviously other development has occurred in that corridor, which is all tributary to Lift 6. Lift 6 is our primary pumping station west of Highway 4145 in the southwest portion of the village. It'll capture all that flow all the way out to Landon Road via Lift 3. Lift 3 pumps to Lift 6. Lift 6 pumps under the freeway back over to Old Farm Lift Station. Lift 6 in its current configuration is expanded to its maximum potential as it exists today. We do not have enough land currently in that yellow box to accommodate any further expansion. We technically don't even own the land it exists on today because it exists in road right-of-way. When County Line Road was widened to its current state back in the early to mid 1990s, the county bought additional right-of-way. That's how that pump station ended up in right-of-way. Looking to the future, we have to have a plan for Lift 6. Parcel available just to the west, to me, is an ideal fit. It's kind of a parcel that is very difficult to redevelop due to the nature of County Line Road right there with a right in, right out type turning movements. The latest proposal that came before Plan Commission and Village Board was a Taco Bell, which was soundly denied. Looking bigger picture, removing the recycling center, the new DPW facility, it's going to open up possible passive recreation to the Menominee River at the recycling center. Some people are talking, well, we can kayak the river. This would be an ideal place to pull your kayak out of the river. The Menominee River meanders through that property with the majority of the land available on the north side of the river along Buffalo Wild Rings up to the old Rivers Bend Golf Club, which if you haven't been back there lately, it's pretty sad the way it's been left. But I'm here tonight to ask if the village board is in favor of staff looking into the possible purchase of the parcel in red. It's currently on the market for around $900,000. This would allow the utility to expand lift station number 6 with minimal expense for infrastructure, because it would just be a reverse drill under the river to get the flows reversed back to a new pump station and use the current alignment of the forest main that exists. And it could also offer potential passive recreational uses to the river at a future date if the village so chooses to do that.
I make a motion to approve new business item E and direct staff to look into the potential relocation or acquisition of property.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
Tim, could you explain the alternative and the expense to the alternative?
The alternative is to expand lift station number 3. Lift station number 3 exists on the southeast corner of the Walmart entrance at Maple Drive. It's just a small stone guard building, very inconspicuous. That pump station has an 18-inch interceptor sewer that serves out to the current Grace Lutheran site in Menominee Falls. And if we don't expand or have the potential to expand lift 6, we will have to expand lift 3, which is going to cost millions of dollars because you're going to have a land acquisition in the corridor of Appleton Avenue, where land is very valuable. You're going to have to put a force main in that's almost 2 miles long. It's going to have to go underneath Highway 41, tie back in on Lilac Lane and run a parallel force main down Lilac Lane back to Division to bring it into Old Farm that direction.
You're reversing flow.
Yeah. Yep.
So if I may continue, so when this went through Public Works, this became the more logical, obviously, only logical option to doing what we need to do to increase the size of that.
There's no other parcels available in the county line corridor at all. I mean, this is kind of like a, you know, it kind of fell into our lap kind of thing. Whether it pans out or not, that's to be determined.
Trustee Jan Miller.
You're anticipating approximately 900,000 for the property?
I
or-
believe Jeff looked into it and their ask it's on the market for 900,000.
Where does the money come from? Do you have it in your
The
fund?
utility would probably purchase it outright, and then at some time in the future, when you develop a new lift station, there could be a
Just
cost share
hold-
with general fund at that time or whatever.
Right. So would you use the lift 6, the current one, the old one, let's call it old, until you can't?
Yeah, I
You
mean, you're
have to-
probably looking at, we're starting to see deterioration of the steel can that was put in the ground in 1975. So I mean, you're talking,
Oh.
it's lived a 50-year life cycle already. We did a rehabilitation in 2004, added some new cathodic protection, upgraded the pumps to their current maximum capacity. This isn't something that's going to happen next year or the year after. It would be a, 5 to 10 year replacement on that pump station if we relocated to this site.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion? If there's no monies, would we do roll call vote, village attorney?
No, you wouldn't have to at this time. Obviously, if we get to the point where we're going to present a purchase offer, that would be the time where you would need to do that.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Not opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Next item is item F, library condenser replacement commitment in an amount not to exceed $202,000.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Is there anybody to present any information or answer any questions?
I can provide an overview. The condenser unit at the library is reaching the end of its useful life. And the cost of repairs would be excessive relative to the cost of replacement. So DPW staff is recommending that we replace a condenser unit at a cost of about $202,000. That item was reviewed by the Public Works Committee, who concurred with the replacement of the condenser, but referred the item to the General Government and Finance Committee to discuss financing options. It was discussed by Finance this evening. There were 3 options that were considered. One was utilizing general fund reserves for the replacement. The second was utilizing ARPA funds for the replacement. And the third would be to add the $202,000 for the, $202,000 for the condenser replacement to the general obligation bond issuance that we're planning in a couple of months for the DPW facility. the General Government and Finance Committee recommended the adding the amount to the bonds being issued for the DPW facility.
Okay. Further discussion? Trustee Kaminsky.
Also in GGF, and I should probably let you talk to this, Rick, but the reason we didn't use the ARPA funds was because we're going to lump the ARPA funds that we have, the 500,000 to do the plan for the police and, so there was a reason for that. But also, this was going to be proposed for capital improvement in the budget that we're going to be looking at in September here. So it's not like it's coming out of the blue, like all of a sudden we didn't budget for it. This was going to be in the capital plan, just so we're all aware of that.
Okay.
It was planned for.
Further discussion? Trustee Myers.
And then the other thing to go along with that is because where we can put this in there is because it's a item that will be more than 10 years, which is allowed under the statute. Is
Yes,
that correct, Steve?
It does meet the criteria for the for a bondable project. It is an item that would be capitalized.
Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
And I just wanted to make a correction. I believe the library had failure on the air conditioning this summer, and we really need this.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper? Aye. President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Next item on the agenda is item G, approved bid for Public Works Facility.
Motion to approve new business G as proposed.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Motion made and seconded. Any information requests from Mr. Ratajczyk? Go ahead.
Where is it?
Larry?
So this is an unusual type of bid that I'm bringing before the board. It was bid Friday, and that's the reason it did not go through the Public Works Committee. Chairman Kaminsky allowed us to come right to village board. This is basically the first bid package of several that will be coming. And this bid package was to cover the long lead items, such as the precast walls. Those are estimated to take somewhere between 9 to 12 months to get. The low bidder was a local firm. Stonecast was the low bidder on that. The structural steel is another long-term lead item. Construction supply and erection was low on that one. And then the steel for the roofing materials, and I think the insulation was also in there. Northern Metal and Roofing was low on that. And then the generator, surprisingly, is a very long lead time also. And Walter, I'm not sure if it was Walter Incorporated Company, was low on that. The bid also included earthwork and utilities. And it was broken down between the site work, which is out of public right of way, but on the site. And also for the TID 9 work, which is the utilities from Dodgers Bay Road and into the site on the public road, and included the public road there for TID 9. So seeing that the village is already approved using Moore Construction as our project manager, the difference of these contracts from our normal contracts is that Moore Construction will be the entity entering into contracts with these suppliers. So I bring to you not a request for award, but a request to approve these bids for Moore Construction to enter into contracts for them and to keep the village board appraised on values as the bid continues.
Further discussion? Trustee Baum?
Should this not go through the Building Oversight Committee? 'Cause I haven't seen any of these numbers. I don't know anything about this. Usually, we've been sending that through that committee to review this stuff. I'm not sure what our total budget is for this project, how these numbers compare to a total budget, compare to an estimate. So I'm a little concerned about what I'm approving and not approving when I don't know what numbers are.
Village Attorney?
The code just provides that the Building Construction Oversight Committee generally plays a consultative and oversight role with respect to any project to build or reconstruct a village building. Doesn't specifically talk about budget, but to me, I guess that would probably be included in oversight of what you're talking about. So I would think you'd want a recommendation from that body.
Yeah, at least somebody looking at all the numbers. I don't even know what all the numbers are. Nobody on this board knows what these numbers are.
Yeah.
So what are we approving here?
Village Administrator?
At what cost?
This is the first bid package in the construction of the Public Works facility. There is an approved budget that the village board has approved. This is, while there likely will be an increase to that budget, that'll be covered as part of the 2022 budget process. These initial bid packages do fall within what's already been approved by the village board.
So,
Trustee Kaminsky?
I also, we do have more construction whom we hired to keep an eye on this and to vet all of this out. So to me, this is a somewhat different look on this entire project, and I'm totally comfortable with the way it's being done.
Further discussion?
it,
Trustee Chad Miller?
is there a document that you provided in here? Do you have a page number or anything that gives us
You got all these.
these? Am I looking at the right thing? The more? Okay.
Yeah.
I include the bid
Yeah,
results
all
from
right.
each bid package.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Page 994.
I've got, yeah, but then there's something from
Yeah, you're
Grave
looking
too. I know.
What are you on?
1006. What number were you on, Jolene? 988.
994. is actually-
Oh, was
994?
994 was.
Thank
the one-
That starts at,
You get this,
995. Try 995.
you got
Yeah,
this document?
I think
Two
so.
pages after that.
Okay. It's a little long. That's all I'm saying.
is there a question, Trustee Miller, or comment?
That's where I got it.
Okay.
No, that was my question. Where
Okay.
is it?
Further discussion? Further discussion? Trustee Myers?
The only thing I'll say is, as everybody knows, getting a product takes months, sometimes a year to be able to get it. We need to keep this thing going if we want to keep it the timetable that we originally were talked about this evening as example is GGF. Got to do this, move on. And as Steve had said before, we already approved this board of I think it was $24 million. What month that was, I don't remember anymore, but we haven't gone over that amount yet.
Yeah.
No.
I'm done. Go ahead, Dave. If I'm not sure.
Trustee Baum?
So, for example, the numbers for bid package 1.
Mhm.
How does this number compare to the budget number? Are we equal to, over, under? Where are we at?
Some more
Relative.
construction could come up here and answer this. I'll take a shot at it from what I understood we discussed after the bid. These are all partial packages for let's just say the precast concrete walls. There's more to it than just the panels being ordered. We wanted to get them ordered into production, so we'd get them within 9 months to a year.
Right.
But this is not the total estimated price for installing the wall panels.
but,
And Mike Moore could answer it. Yeah.
but
Go ahead.
in your original budget, you got a line item in there
Yep.
for concrete panels
Right.
that
Yeah.
cost $3,285,000. Is that what was in the original budget? Or are we over or under the original budget with this number?
Right now, sure, precast is under budget, $112,030 from the original budget. The structural steel metal component is at this moment, over budget, $237,989. The roofing is well under budget, but we only bid for the rubber and the insulation at this point, so it's not a full comparison, but it's over $1 million under budget. But there are other components that we need to bid in the next bid package, copings and those sorts of things. As far as the generator, we had budgeted, we are under budget $241,764. But in future bid packages, we will also have some enclosures that we'll have around the generator. So we feel we're still in budget there. And the same thing with the earthwork. There's $691,912 left in the budget. And right now, we have bid out the site gradings that enable to get the site cut and filled and the road filled. But the structural excavation for footings, foundations will be bid at another bid package, but it's trending under budget. So right now we are under budget with this award with bid package 1.
Further discussion? Ryder.
I'm going to just make one general comment here. Just because, and I understand there's supply shortages and everything else under the sun right now that affects it, but I still think that still means we watch our prices. And that doesn't give anybody carte blanche just to go out and spend $100,000, and I'm not saying you're doing this, $100,000 more because I'm afraid I'm going to have to wait 6 more months. That's not the way you do business.
That doesn't.
That's just a personal comment.
Further discussion? Trustee Chan Miller. Oh, I'm sorry. No further discussion? In honor of.
I think it's time.
I think, we trust, this board has decided that Moore Construction will be our engineering group, or actually our oversight group. And from what it sounds like is that they're doing their job. And they're knowing at what time to bid these things, knowing that there is a wait out there, and some of it couldn't be years. I've seen buildings that I drive by every day that they have the walls up and they haven't had a roof or a piece of metal come to it for over 8 months. And just walls are sitting there still jacked with timbers, waiting for the rest of it to come. So I trust that, being that they're in the business and out there every day working within it, that what they're doing is they're looking out for our best interest. And from what it sounds like, we're still under budget significantly, and now would be the time to buy, because I don't think prices are going down at all. So 6 months from now, it could be 500,000 above this for any of it. So I'm more than willing to vote for this based on where we've put our trust and what this board has decided as a group for a budget, and who we've asked to control that budget, which is Moore. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider?
No.
Trustee Pieper?
No.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Next item is item H, award of bid private property inflow and infiltration phase number 1. More information on this, we have our Director of Public Works, Mr. Tachik. Larry.
This project is coming to a nice head. This was started back in 2011 to eliminate personal property infiltration inflow into the sanitary sewer system. For various reasons, it faltered, and and went by the wayside. It was revigorated back in 2016 with two village engineers ago. Those bids were too high and rejected. Moving forward, we did another analysis, another bid to, last year we bid out to televise the sanitary sewer, and those bids came in about 400% higher than anticipated due to everybody just being busy and not having employees, and so everybody was just bidding high. So along with Grafe Engineers, we've put together another project. It seems to be well on track. MMSD, who is the entity basically funding this project, I believe we have $1.6 million in our grant fund to do this work. And the subdivision that was identified, you have a drawing with my packet identifying the area. The bids that I'm bringing forward to you right now are the northern half of the area, School Road, Shea Park Road, and part of Butternut Road. And these bids are very favorable. And working with MMSD, they've, again, that was one of the things that slowed the project down. They found out that what they've been doing for several years, quite a few years, as far as aligning the pipes, they had too high of a percentage of failures. So what they did was they put a hold on the project for everybody for about 6 to 8 months while they regrouped and figured out what they wanted to do for repairs and replacement. So basically, this project is physically replacing the laterals from the sewer line to 3 feet outside of the house. We do have alternate bids if we need to go into the house under the foundation, but that'll be determined as the project proceeds, and we would televise those laterals if needed. So we had 4 bids. MJ Construction was the low bidder at $734,740. This bid has been approved by MMSD to move forward, and I bring this tonight to you for discussion and award of this project.
Motion to approve new business H.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, this, I think I was on the committees when we discussed this in 2016. And I got to say that we're one of the few villages that are going to fund this entire thing for our residents. There's many municipalities that share this cost. So I think it's great that we're finally getting to this and able to start working on this problem. And it's been a problem for a long time.
I think we had, I think between Grafe and Tim Zimmerman from our sewer utility pushing along this project along, we actually have about 82 or 83% positive response from the residents. They've received several letters and they've begun forms to respond, send back to us, agreeing to let us do the work. I think back prior to that, I think we beat out, I think, Tim, didn't you have 60%, 50% maybe the first time around, was it? 68%. So we've topped it. I think I almost want to say we're near 90% because they're still trickling in one at a time coming into our office. And so we have very good resident participation in this. We're doing the north half that I mentioned first as phase 1. Phase 2, what's going to happen there is we were proposing to do a sanitary sewer and water main relay project, and that's subdivision part, everything south of Concord. And along with that, MMSD has agreed to pay for the sanitary sewer laterals that will be done, and we would bid it out with that project. So we'd probably even get a better price than what we have on this current project. So that project will be coming forward later this year, or earlier next year for approval to bid that project out.
Yeah, we have a motion. Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller?
I really have my hand. Larry, could you, in simple terms, are we putting the sewer lines in? What are we doing? Replacing something?
Just
putting
the
the
laterals.
lateral?
Just the laterals from the sewer main to 3 feet outside of the house is what the base bid is, because the residents own that lateral.
Oh,
So in the sanitary laterals are owned by the property owner up to the sewer main. And for the
oh,
water services, the utility or village owns from the main to the curb stop, which is the right-of-way line. And then the homeowner owns from there into the house.
so are they old and failing?
Old and failing.
Yeah, okay.
This was money that was put aside because of MMSD and the amount of water from the outside coming into the system. They were trying to control that. And these are houses that were probably built in the 70s, maybe 60s, 70s. So they're one of the older subdivisions within Germantown. And when they did a lot of the testing within these neighborhoods, I don't know, the failure rate was a very high percentage of the laterals that were failing. So MMSD put this fund together and we chose to participate in it. But for reasons that Larry had discussed earlier, it kind of fell off and on, off and on. And now it's being picked up again, which I think is a great idea because, you know, MMSD is always trying to manage the water upstream, and this helps to do that and keeps water out of the system that isn't really put there on purpose. It's all comes in from the yard or from stormwater. So it helps to eliminate stormwater infiltration in this area into the sewer lines.
Yeah, great.
If I could mention one more thing is that the funds for the contract is $734,000. That is something that the village would expend, sewer utility expend, and it's refunded to the village from these funds that MSD has granted.
It's really nice. Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Knight Rider?
Aye.
Trustee Peeper? Aye. President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Larry. Next item is item I, request from trustee Jan Miller and trustee Myers. Ayler's review of the TID number 9, as well as the 3 that are open, 6, 7, and 8, and a request an update on Moody's bond rating. To handle this new business item I, I'll turn the meeting over to Village Administrator Steve Kreckler.
Thank you. Included in the packet are copies of the year-end reports from the 4 tax increment districts, as well as the press release that Moody's issued at our last bond rating, and I'll be giving some highlights here. Tax increment District 6 was established in 2014. At that time, it had a base value of about $2.8 million. The incremental value added to that through the end of 2021 was $30.7 million. The projected year of closure in that last report was 2030. That's compared to the original projected closure date of 2034. Mandatory closure date for TID 6 is 2034. By the way, I apologize for my voice. I had a first 6th grade volleyball game matches this Sunday, and I was coaching, and it was very loud, and trying to get the 6th grade girls in the right positions on the court. I pretty much wore my voice out. So, next, we have Tax Increment District 7. It was created in 2017. This was initially created around the JW Speaker expansion and was then amended about a year and a half ago by the village board to include the Capstone Quadrangle development on the south side of Holy Hill Road. When it was established, the base value was $9.6 million. As of the end of last year, there was incremental value added of $4.3 million. I believe that'll go up significantly with the new buildings, the new building that Capstone has constructed, and I believe there will be some other new development forthcoming there in the near future. Projected closure date based on the 4.3 million in incremental value is 2031. That compares with an original projected closure date of 2039 and a mandatory closure of 2039. Tax increment District 8. This is the area north of Holy Hill Road, including the Zilber development along with Dickman and other individual development there. That was created in 2018. It had a base value of $640,000. in the 3 years from 2018 to 2021, there was $102.6 million of additional incremental development. Based on that number, the projected closure date was 2029, compared with the original projected closure date and mandatory closure 2038. And that may be closing potentially even earlier, again, with the rapid development in Tax Increment District 8. Tax Increment District 9 is brand new, is just formed, so there is no official report completed yet, and no actual numbers. The base value for Tax Increment District 9 is about $189,000 with projected incremental value of $25.7 million. The projected closure date is 2041, with a couple of years of cushion there, a mandatory closure date of 2043. And then finally, just some comments on our last bond rating. Moody's awarded us back in April a AA2. That's just 2 steps from their, well, the maximum, the best you can get is a AAA. The next best is a AA1, and then followed by a AA2. They identified factors that could lead to an upgrade, additional economic development and tax-based growth could lead to an upgrade. Additional reserves beyond what we have at this point could contribute to an upgrade, and then reducing leverage and fixed costs. So if there were costs that we were able to shed, that could also help our bond rating. Factors that could lead to a downgrade include a decline in reserves, growth in debt. Although one of the things I'll mention about growth in debt, as our advisor from Ehlers mentioned during a presentation to General Government and Finance earlier this evening, they do look at growth in debt for what can be referred to as legacy projects like the Public Works facility or the Police Department facility, large generational types of investments, as different than if our debt was growing because we were funding ongoing expenses through debt. And then if we had failing tax increment districts, that could impact our bond rating negatively as well. So that's a quick overview of the tax increment districts and the bond rating. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Trustee Kaminsky.
We've been AA for quite a few years, haven't we? Because I know when I researched that, it's got to be 10 years ago, that's about the highest rating a village can get, because they actually do look at it for different categories of size and everything too. Like if you can achieve that, that's huge.
That is a very good rating for a community of Germantown size. It is more difficult for communities Germantown size and smaller to get higher ratings than that because of we have less diversity of our revenue streams, and it's easier for something to go wrong in a small community than it is for there's less cushion involved than there would be in a larger community. So a AA2 is excellent for a community of Germantown size.
Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
And when will the, you mentioned the number 9 district, it hasn't begun yet. Will that be next year, or when would that be?
It was, the tax increment District 9 was just created by the village board a couple of months ago and approved by the Joint Review Board. So the paperwork has been filed with the state of Wisconsin, and it is officially created as a tax increment district. There won't be any numbers to report on until the end of actually 2023. There will be, I don't expect any development in any accessible development in tax increment District 9 yet this year. So we probably won't see any change in those numbers until the end of 2023.
Thank you.
Trustee Myers.
Thank you, Steve, for the report.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Next item is item J, new business item J, resolution 27-2022, denial of claim from Crystal Hess Benay Bose. Village Attorney?
Sure. So before you is a claim or a resolution denying the claim, I should say, of an individual who owns some property over on the far west edge of the village. Basically, the substance of the allegations are that we should build a road to provide access to our property. There is not really any liability here that I see. Denial of the claim is just the first step in the process. If she wanted to pursue something further, she would be able to do that at that point.
Okay.
It'd be a motion to approve the resolution denying the claim.
I'll make a motion to approve the denial as presented.
Second.
Motion made to approve Resolution 27-2022, which is a denial of claim from Crystal Hess Benobes, or I think Benay Bays. Discussion on that motion to approve. Trustee Myers?
Brian, could you give me a better idea of where that location is, please, rather than?
Sure, you're gonna test my memory. So it is on Amy Bell Road, which is the town line, just a little north of County Line. There's a cross street there that I can't remember, the Indian something, I think.
I know where it is. Okay,
Yeah, and it's just north of that.
thank you.
Okay.
Right. Where Amy Bell dead ends as it goes north,
Right.
then it's beyond that.
And then the next street goes to the east.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion on a motion to approve? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unopposed? Motion carries. Next three items are, let's see, all into closed session. So we'll start with new business item K, acquisition of properties at North 116, West 15843 Main Street, and at West 157, North 11593 Fond du Lac Avenue. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subsection 1, subparagraph E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for K.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, and to include
Who needs to be here?
village attorney.
Village attorney, village administrator, planning staff. I don't remember if we may want Mr. Tychek here, and the village clerk. You want to go home, is what you're saying? I don't think you don't need to be here for any of them, but you have other duties other than clerk duties, finance and whatnot that you might want to be here for.
All right, I will stay. Thank
All
you.
right, the motion includes those people. That's okay with the motion maker and the second.
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Myers, trustee Peter.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye. Next closed session is item L, Stonecast Concrete Purchase of Village Parcel. GTNV 362999. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subsection 1, subparagraph E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and they may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for new business item L.
Motion made and seconded, and to include same people. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Peeper. Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers. Trustee Knight Rider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And the last item under new business is Community Development Director. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph C for considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Business item. Okay, so just those two.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Trustee Peeper. Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers. Trustee Knight Rider.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, before we adjourn into closed session, our next regular village board meeting will be on Monday, October 3rd at 7 PM here at the Village Hall Boardroom. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night. We are adjourned. Please turn off your microphones.
Are we up there?